Yes. A warm good evening to one and all present here. We all chartered accountants are so much engrossed in our day-to-day work that we don't find time to prepare ourselves for the exam. To make the most out of little time we get for our skills upgradation, Nagpur branch has come up with this apt webinar on how to crack ESA 3.0 under the aegis of DAP, that is Digital Accounting and Assurance Board. I recognize the presence of Nanda sir, Chairman, Digital Accounting and Assurance Board, both the faculties. I even recognize the presence of Chairman, Nagpur Branch, CA Jitendra Saglani sir, Managing Committee members, Swarupa Vazalwar, Ajay Vaswani sir. And to begin with, since Nanda sir is about to catch the flight, I request committee member CA Swarupa Vazalwar to briefly introduce the CA Nanda sir. Over to you, Swarupa ma'am.
Thank you, Trupti ma'am, and a very good evening to all the participants and the dignitaries. It's really my pleasure to introduce one of my idols, CA Charanjit Singh Nanda. Sir is actually the Central Council member of ICAI, and he's chairing the committees further as a chairman. He's a chairman for Digital Accounting and Assurance Board, Internal Audit Standards Board, and Committee on Information Technology of South Asian Federation of Accountants, that is SAFA. He is also the Vice Chairman of Banking, Financial Services and Insurance Committee, ICAI. During his tenure as a Central Council member, he has chaired various committees of ICAI as a chairman and vice chairman. He has also been member of Quality Review Board set up by the Government of India. The list of his achievements, contributions, and leadership is really unending, but all of us know that he is traveling elsewhere. So I will be introducing him this brief, and I welcome you to the digital forum, sir.
Thank you so much, Swarupa ma'am. Now I request CS Nanda sir, Chairman, Digital Accounting and Assurance Board, to address the participants. Over to you, sir.
Thanks a lot, Trupti ji. The Chairman of Nagpur Branch, CA Jitendra Saglani sir, Dr. Saurabh Maheshwari, Professor Dr. Kapil Kumar Suri, the learned faculties of the day, Madam Swarupa, Mr. Ajay Vaswani, and all who have come here to go home enlightened. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a very rare occasion when you address chartered accountants for learning purposes. Yes, owning technical skills is a different thing, but to clear exams, Digital Accounting and Assurance Board thought it fit to hold many programs so that the faculties having a rich experience can instruct the candidates how they could be a clear winner in information system audit exams. Ladies and gentlemen, I am truly honored to be amongst you. I can understand your anxiety and your indulgence to clear the exams. So my best wishes with you and best wishes for this program. I am traveling, my flight is just half an hour, so I would withdraw. Thanking you all, thanking the Nagpur branch for hosting this program, thanking both the faculties and the board for holding this program for the benefit of our members. Thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. And now I request CA Jitendra Saglani, Chairman, Nagpur branch, to give his welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, CA Trupti. I hope I'm audible and there is not much noise in the conversation. Yeah, thank you. Chairman of the Digital Accounting and Assurance Board, CA Charanjit Singh Nanda sir, the Honorable CCM. CA Dayanivas Sharma, Honorable CCM from Hyderabad, would be joining us very soon. The two most quoted speakers, Dr. Saurabh Maheshwari and Professor Suriji. All the participants out there, and my committee members from Nagpur branch, CA Trupti Bhatter, the coordinator, CA Swarupa Vazalwar, and CA Ajay Vaswani, and all my dear friends, the students, actually the chartered accountants who are now today will be the students of this particular session, which is ESA 3.0, how to crack the ESA 3.0. Friends, Digital Accounting and Assurance Board is one such committee which actually looks after the various digital initiatives of the institute, and this particular seminar, the webinar that is actually conducted, is for you all so that you can crack this particular exam, which is ESA 3.0. As far as the digitization is concerned, I think we are moving ahead, but we need to understand how to audit the digital transactions. And for that, this particular exam, that is ESA 3.0 is the base. And I think this is an apt occasion wherein the Digital Accounting Assurance Board has thought of organizing this particular webinar and addressing all the queries of the members. And we, the Nagpur branch, feel privileged that we have been given the opportunity to host this program. And I'm very much sure that the participants out there would be gaining a lot and understanding how to crack this exam. Friends, I'm actually in a place wherein there would be a lot of noise after this, so I would not be taking much of your time. I wish the speakers all the very best, because the trainers would be actually facing lot many queries today. So Suriji, Maheshwariji, I think you are the best, and you'll be doing the best with all the queries that are coming to you. And I wish everyone, the speakers as well as the students, the chartered accountants, all the very best. Happy learning to one and all. And over to you, Trupti.
So much, sir. Invite our first learned speaker, CA Saurabh Maheshwari, sir, who is an edupreneur, educational strategist, national trainer, national awardee, author, poet, startup mentor, life coach, data analyst, and the list is actually long. So with this brief introduction, I request Saurabh Maheshwari, sir, to kindly take over the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Trupti. Thank you very much for a nice introduction. And just a small correction, I am not from the Chartered Accountant fraternity. So I'm an engineer by profession. So this particular word, CA, is pretty much high enough, and I am not eligible for that. Anyway, so good evening to everyone out there. Thanks, Charandut sir, the chairman of Nagpur branch, Tripti, and the entire team out there who is organizing, along with Suri sir. Thanks for giving me an opportunity again, Tripti, and Nagpur branch for interacting with the participants and all. And I'm sure that next 1.5 hours with me is going to be some sort of learning outcome based time for you all, because in the last time, whatever we are doing is actually going to add value to your examination. Even 5 marks added from my side is going to be a big contribution for clearing this DISA examination. So I am now taking this particular opportunity to go through a small presentation for you all, in which we will be covering up in a very systematic manner and in a very brief as well, first 3 modules, that is module 1, 2, and 3. The next 3 modules, that is 4, 5, and 6, will be covered by Kapil Suri sir. Along with this, I will also like to interact with you all for your queries and all, if time permits, and if you all have some doubts. The chat box is open for you all. At the same time, I will also try to give some sort of tips and techniques through which you will be able to choose the right options, or maybe will be able to crack the DISA examinations, at least in this attempt. Okay, so let's begin. So profile of mine is already been discussed. I'm not putting up more time to that. We will be talking about 3 modules, module 1, 2, and 3. So 1 is related to your information system audit process, which is taking care of 18% of the weightage part. Module 2 talks about governance, the GRC framework and all, and also talks about risk management and BCP section, that is 16% of the entire weightage. And module 3 is SDLC, along with its implementation, maintenance, and system-related audit aspects, application system-related audit aspects. So that is again going to cover up around 18%. So in totality, we will be taking care of around 52%. So that means some major part will be covered up here, and a base will be built up by me. On that, Kapil Suri sir will build his own building at the later part. And in totality, you will be able to interact with both of us, and has maximum value added to your examination. So module 1, which is related to information system audit, what we are going to talk about in this particular module is related to the entire IS audit process. Although keep the IS part as separate for the time being, audit process is what you are by default aligned with. You know what are the systematic process of audit. You know from audit charter to the audit engagement letters to the entire auditing process, evidence collections, and all those things. So I'm not here to tell you about audit process. But yes, when it comes to information system audit, there are a few things that are added to that, because now the system becomes the tool on which you have to audit or around which you have to audit. So there are actually two different types of audit: audit of information system and audit around the information system, right? So in totality, module 1 covers up that. So what is out there is that you need to understand that what exactly we are talking about. So when we are talking about computer system as a whole, we talk about the devices, we talk about the softwares, we talk about the networking, we talk about the database, we talk about users, and we talk about control systems. So in technicalities, when we are talking about information system, it takes care of multiple things, which includes hardware, which includes software, which includes networking, fine, which includes database, which includes user, and yes, some or the other security controls, security related measures. So these are technically 6 different things which makes up the entire information system. Okay, so information system is nothing which is being created separately. It is a combination of multiple things, which includes computer hardware, softwares means what, application softwares and system softwares and all, entire networking aspects, which includes your intranet, extranet, obviously internet, because today we are doing nothing without the presence of internet out there. We have to talk about database, that is the entire data which we are collecting, we are generating, or we are grabbing from multiple sources, just to make sure that it has to be analyzed perfectly, because that is something which is unique, and that is the most, valuable asset today, because it is not replaceable by anybody or anything in the market. Then user itself is a very important input component of the information system, because unless users are there, we cannot expect things to do on its own. So 100% automation is not practically possible actually. And then multiple controls, multiple security aspects are again an important part of it. Correct? So when you talk about information system, it by default includes computer systems. And when database is there, obviously when you process data, it generates what? Information, which is a valuable outcome after the entire processing has been done. If there is no valuable outcome, if we are not generating information, it makes no sense to us. So ultimately, information system base is information. And when we are talking about system as a whole, a system executes multiple processes. So you must know what are the different processes, because unless processes are known to you, the auditing aspects of the system is practically impossible. So business process means every minute, every smallest of the process which incorporates some or the other input to output process in an organization is a business process. And what we are doing is the automation of it. Fine. So there is no rocket science. We are automating the same processes, which if the system would have not been there, will be executed by humans and manuals, right? Then whenever system we are talking about, obviously a system is talking about a lot of resources, a lot of assets, a lot of valuable processes and all. We have to make it secure. So when it comes to security aspects, there is an entire security management framework. There are multiple security controls, the aspects under which we need to make it much secure. Suri sir will take care of it. Fine, sir. And risk-related universe is also covered up by him. When we are talking about IS audit, our entire audit system is based on something which is known as risk-based audit. So we have to understand that if something could have gone wrong, what are the risks in the audit aspects of it? So IR, that is, in the control risk, detection risk, and inherent risk with the IR. These are the 3 risks which needs to be addressed systematically and which are connected to the audit as well when we are conducting the entire audit of an information system. So as it is a risk-based auditing methodology, the audit-related risk must also be incorporated into the entire process, just to make sure that we are doing something which is as risk-free as possible. Right. And for doing that, we will be putting up multiple internal controls that will be covered up systematically when we are going forward for it. Fine. These are multiple standards of auditing which you are by default using, but are applicable in IS audit as well. And these are the standards which are mentioned in your module. So SA 200, SA 210, SA 220, SA 250, SA 300. These are all audit related standards, and I'm nobody to explain you all this. You all are aware. Just to make sure that these numbers and these standards are being in your memory, and you should be able to take them out during the examination part is very important. So learn or maybe just memorize few of these audit standards and align the keywords with the audit standards rather than memorizing it all, because you don't have to write anything. You just have to choose the right option for it. Okay, so you can just keep few keywords connected, and these audit standards which are there stated in front of you, and this presentation will be later on, if required, can be shared with you all as well, can be just memorized for examination angle, right? Now, when you talk about related frameworks of IS information system audit and all, information technology assurance framework is a framework developed by ISACA. This framework comes up with 3 different series, and that's a very important framework, because while auditing, there are 3 basic issues which an IS auditor faces. That is what are the standards under which the auditing can be conducted in the IS environment. As chartered accountants are not so acquainted with the IS related standards, so ISACA has already put up that effort into drafting those things. So just again try to put these keywords into your brain, that there is an ITAF 1000 series which is talking about general standards. There is a 1200 series which talks about performance standards, and there is 1400 series that talks about the reporting standards in the entire IS environment. Detailing of this is not required. Fine, do not go into what is 12,001 point something or 12,005 point something or 14,001 point something. No, that is as of now not required, may be required in the practice purpose, but from examination perspective, just try to make sure that 1000, 1200 and 1400 series are connected to general performance and reporting standards, must be there in your front side of the brain. Okay, and that's a very important framework which is drafted by ISACA. ISACA, you all know, it's a globally renowned body for developing multiple standards and multiple frameworks related to IS audits. Now, as we know, as I've already told you in the initial, that we are talking about entirely risk-based audit. Now, why the risk-based audit needs to be studied? Because until unless the threat is there that what could have gone wrong or what can go wrong, which can affect the business processes, you are not interested, or neither the management is interested to go for the auditing purpose. So those compliances here are from risk-based angle, that if anything goes wrong, it can affect your business processes. It can put some sort of legal issues and compliances, non-compliance related aspects on your system, and can also affect your credibility and customer satisfactions. But what are the changes which are typical in the IS environment? And these are the 3 things which have changed. That is, we have to find out what are the different ways for evidence collection, because now the evidence is not physically present. You have to understand what are the evidence evaluation techniques. And for evaluation techniques, you have to understand multiple information system related standards. So COBIT, ISO standards, COSO, ITIL, these are all frameworks, all standards under which the evaluation can be done. Fine. So whenever you are trying to read those things, just not read it for the sake of cramming things. Let's identify the logic that every standard or every framework has a particular ideology behind it. And if connected, the question solving can become slightly more easier for you. And the third thing which have changed is the reporting format, because now the reporting is not your taxation reporting or financial reporting. It is related to IS audit reporting. So some sort of reporting formats are also standard by or we can say in certain frameworks. So you can say ISO has a certain reporting standard format. So when you are going for an ISO audit, suppose from 27,000 security control audit or 31,000 audit, you have to make sure that you are fulfilling or making those reporting formats available, implemented. But yes, it is a risk-based audit, and there are 3 things which have changed in the IT environment. Now, very important aspect which covers up in almost every module of your course is that controls. So in totality, the controls, you can say there are total as internal controls, they can be classified as, and controls talks about general controls. And then there are IS controls, and in IS, there are application controls and IS general controls as well. And these controls are technically categorized into 3 things, that is preventive, detective, and corrective, or you can say 3 categories of preventive, detective, and corrective. Just make sure that whenever controls are being placed in or controls are coming up in your mindset or in front of you, you should be able to identify them, which of these are preventive. That is the controls which are there put up to avoid some mishappening to happen. The controls which are there to put up to identify a problem which is actually occurring, that is called detective controls. And the controls which are there implemented to cover up the issues, the cover up problems which have been encountered because of the incident happened, those are called corrective controls. So these 3 words, if they are in your mindset, then controls related entire ecosystem will not be so typical enough to understand, right? Every control can be aligned to these 3 categories. But again, mark my word, one particular control can be into multiple categories as well. So just an example for you, if you talk about anti-malware software, it is into preventive, detective, and corrective, all three categories. Correct. When it comes to firewall as a control, it is into preventive and detective, but not in corrective control. But yes, you have to understand what are the primary purpose of those controls. Okay, so it is not a rocket science. It is just a simple concept-based learning. You understand that what was the main purpose of this particular control, whether it is putting up the preventive, detective, or corrective aspects, you can put up those into this. But multiple headings or multiple categorization of a particular control is possible, so do not get confused into that. Fine. In totality, all controls are internal controls, which we will be talking about. And those are general controls, which are physical and environmental controls. And when it comes to IS controls, something which is inbuilt into the application software. Those are application controls. And that I have talked about firewall or anti-malware software. These are what? IT general controls. Okay. So physical controls, environmental control, administrative controls, or legal controls are the general controls. Rest all controls which are technically implemented, those are known as IS controls. And in IS, there are two controls, application software. Inbuilt controls are application controls. And controls we are putting up over and above it, like firewalls, anti-malware software, intrusion detection system. These are all IT general controls. Okay. These all will be covered up in a gradual course of timeline with this. Now, these are the different phases of audit, which you have been executing during your normal auditing process as well. But I've just placed in a very systematic manner just to make sure that you are aligned to that. This is what extracted from your module only. Fine. I have just put enough heads for that. That is starting from setting up of audit objective that needs to be done by the governance body of an organization. Then you have to come down to release some sort of request for proposal. Then the request for proposal response should come down from the IS auditor, and then the finalization of auditor happens from the board, who is being there, filtering down which particular auditor is there. This particular process related documentation are already there in your module as an appendices, and you can take a reference of it at the later part. But as of now, RFP request for proposal plays a very important role out here. Then drafting an audit charter, which includes the entire detailed process or detailed thing that needs to be studied, that needs to be reviewed, under which the rights of an auditor, the duties of an auditor, the process you are going forward for it, the timeline, the rights, everything is mentioned out there. Once it is being reviewed, okayed by you, then audit engagement letter comes up, which is, yes, you have to make sure that you are aligned with the organization. Then the auditor responsibilities. As of now, this is not the auditor responsibility. This is all to be done by the corporate. What is the auditor responsibility? Is the first responsibility that an auditor has to do is what? Understanding the business. This, from here, it starts the auditor's role. Correct? So understanding, you have to understand what the business is, the type of business, the technologies used in the business. Find the processes which are there. Until unless you are being aligned to this, or you are being understanding the basic aspect of that particular business, it is practically impossible for you to go for IS auditing. So this is the first thing. If there is a question which comes up, what are the first thing that needs to be done by an IS auditor? Before beginning to an IS audit, it's what? Understanding the entire business environment. Okay. Then obviously there are communication, quality assurance processes, scope of audit. These are all systematically known things to you. Again, two things which we have already talked on is the evidence collections and evidence evaluation things that are different as compared to your manual processes. Because now for evidence collection, you will be using some sort of CAD tools or some sort of log files or records. Fine. These are the basic two aspects which must be known to you, or you must be aware about these things, that what are the right CAD tools and what are the log files that needs to be reviewed and must be accessible to you for creating the right set of evidences. And once the evidences are there, the next part is evidence evaluation, which just needs your auditor's DNA, which is already there in you. You just need to align those standards or evidences with the prevailing or applied IS standards. Then yes, audit documentation reporting again plays a very systematic role. We will be talking about these CAD tools and log files immediately after it. So what are actually CAD tools? So CAD tools are those tools which are used to fetch out the evidences from the system. So there are, you can say, three different types of tools. One is generalized audit tools, which are typically known as GAS. Make sure these short terms are also known to you. These tools are readily available in the market. Fine. You can just find out which is the best possible generalized audit tools for you, and you can purchase it, install it, download it, and start using it. So your tool like Idea tool is a generalized audit software tool which is available. But there are certain organizations who have developed the entire automation tool specifically as per their own requirements and all, within which either they do not want certain generalized audit tool to be used, or else audit tools are not aligned to those specially crafted packages. In that case, what is required is that we may have to develop certain specific audit software. So auditor may get involved into that. Fine. Primarily, yes, it has to be a technical task. But suppose if your role is required, that what kind of evidence needs to be there, how that needs to be fetched, what is the frequency of all those things, then your involvement may be there in the development of these tools as well from the consultant perspective. But yes, there are certain specialized audit software which are typically being crafted as per the uniquely crafted package for an organization. And these tools are not either available in the market or else might not be applicable to other packages also. Okay. And then there are certain utility tools, and these are actually known as log files, majorly certain log files and certain other evidence collection techniques which are readily available within your OS as well. Those are utility tools. So technically, these are the tools which can be used for fetching out the evidences. And then when it talks about techniques, so there are multiple techniques which are there in your code structure for it. So system control audit review file or embedded audit modules, which is a SCARF or EM, is one particular tool. Technique, snapshot, audit hooks, ITF, continuous and intermittent simulations. These are certain techniques which are there, and every technique is a unique and a differentiating technique in itself. Fine, I'll put up some keywords for you. So when it comes to snapshot, it takes something which can be termed as a picture or snapping or recording, you can say that. Fine, it goes with recording. When it comes to ITF, it do not talks about the actual data. It talks about what the dummy transactions. Fine, so it hides the actual data and collects the data from the dummy transactions. CIS try to match up the transactions. Fine, that try to compare transactions between CIS processing and the actual IS system processing. So any discrepancies are being recorded, and the auditor will get some sort of intimation that if it is differentiation in output from CIS and the actual information system, then I think some sort of problem is going on in the system, some sort of errors are there, and you can take your role into finding out those issues. So technically speaking, every particular technique out there is unique in itself. Maximum time ITF, in integrated test facility thing, is being asked, and any word which is related to dummy, transaction, fine, or what do you say, test data, that are connected to ITF, correct? So these problems and these kind of questions comes up very frequently. So one keyword or brief understanding of these techniques is very much important. At least one odd questions or two questions come from tools and techniques related, or you can say this particular slide which is in front of you. Now, in module 1, there is a word called cyber frauds as well, because this is something which is being there in the air. And today only there was a report published that in 2023, the cyber crime or cyber criminals are expected to, double up their technical skills. So obviously that also needs us, for you and for me, to develop our skills to withstand any sort of cyber frauds and all. So fraud detection, fraud investigation, and cyber forensics. Although these are very minute and very brief paragraphs given in a model, but this particular area is one of the very promising and very niche market which is available as a lucrative business opportunity or professional opportunity for you as a chartered accountant. You must know what exactly is the fraud detection. So finding out, again, see, fraud detection comes up with the evidence techniques only. So if you are able to have some sort of CAD tools or some sort of analytical skill set, how to get into the systems, or where are the what are the evidences and from where they can be fetched out, then the techniques and tools are by default available for it. So fraud detection becomes a very important aspect for it, that is finding out the evidences in the right manner. Then investigation of those evidences and aligning those things or presenting those things in certain manner that they can be placed in the front of a court as an entire, the proof of something would have gone wrong. So fraud investigation has to be a systematic process. Fine, and government is already putting up a lot of efforts in awareing the people, in awareness of the people that yes, fraud detection and fraud investigation related to IT environment is something which is very important, and you must put up a right effort into developing your skills around it. So whenever we are talking about IS audit, it actually ends up out here is what presenting the entire thing into a fraud detection, fraud investigation, or cyber forensic related manner in front of an authority or a governing body, so that the organization can be made free from any such problems which can come up from the IT environment in an organization. So possible frauds and possible ways of investigation must be known to you. Right? It's not like once the problem occurs, the solution needs to be drafted afterwards. No, the solution process must be known to us prior, so that the possibility of arising out a problem that reduces. If the problem is there, the methodology of solving down the problem becomes slightly more easier and comfortable for you. Right? So this was related to module 1, although it is all related to IS audit. Again, I am taking you to a word, remove the IS part for the timing. The entire audit is the same that you have been doing out. So do not get confused. Do not get frustrated. Do not get puzzled that IS audit is something different. No, it is just a normal audit in an IS environment with certain techniques, tools, and certain standards. So related to standards, related to certain tools and techniques, we have discussed briefly, and we'll be talking about these things in next around an hour or so to make sure you are more acquainted with the entire process. Okay. Now, module 2, which is again very important module, is related to governance and management aspect of it. It also includes risk management, although the risk management part will be covered up by Kapil Suri sir, because that is majorly been there from control perspective in module 4 and 5. Fine. So I'll be talking about governance, management, and PCM section. What exactly is governance? Now, technically speaking, this particular word is being there around you, but there may be some sort of confusion. Let me just clear it out. So concept of governance is nothing new. Fine. So governance means monitoring from the top or having an eagle eye view for it. At the same time, making the entire guidelines and framework for operations. So from an organization perspective, if we talk about, that is known as the enterprise governance. That is governance of the entire enterprise as a whole, and making sure that everything which is being conducted or executed within this is under a very well defined and a controlled process. Correct? Now, enterprise governance talks about two things. One is corporate governance and one is business governance. What exactly it is? It's a very precise differentiations. So corporate governance is primarily about protecting the business. Please make sure these words must be known to you. Protecting, these are the keywords. Now, whenever you are solving the question, just make sure that those keywords are identified in the question itself by you. If the keywords are identified, then solving down the question or selecting the right options by default becomes comparatively much faster, much easier, and much assured. Right? So this corporate governance is related to protecting the business, and business governance is related to growing the business. I hope these words can be aligned and you can correlate. So corporate governance refers to policies and procedures set in place to ensure business operation effectively. Again, make another keyword, effectively, within the law, right? And for the optimal benefit of stakeholders. While business governance is related to operations of a business which is in an efficient manner. So again, efficiency related to business governance, effectiveness is related to corporate governance. Is it aligning things? So if these words and this way of understanding is there in your mindset, again, clearing DISA is not that rocket science, right? Now, there are terms which comes up every now and then in a module also. You may come up with these terminologies. I'll just try to brief you out. So when it comes to entire enterprise governance today, you know that today most of the organizations are being, entire processes are IT-driven processes. There is no manual process, right? So we are talking about that size of organization or that type of organization which is being completely ERP driven or completely automated. Automated, again, I am not saying 100% automation is possible. Humans are there, but automation means every process is now being done in the with the help of computers and IT or information systems and softwares which are there. So in that case, there are multiple terminologies which have been coined at different timeline by some bodies. Fine, but these terminologies in totality talks about the basic 3 pillars of it. So what is IT governance, which was the term which was there in COVID 4.5. It is a similar terminology which has been renamed in COVID 5 as GIT, which is governance of enterprise IT, which is again renamed in COVID 2019 framework as EGIT. So whether it is ITG, information technology governance, or governance of enterprise IT, or enterprise governance of IT, in totality, we are talking about that, yes, today IT and enterprise are completely synced with each other. Fine. If there are 100 processes in the organization, all 100 have some or the other automated relationships. That means you cannot separate IT and enterprise today. So technically, these three terms are talking about three pillars, which is what? Making sure that we are ensuring benefit realization, that entire IT processes or any IT investment which is being done in the organization must be benefiting to the organization in some or the other manner, maybe financial benefit, operational benefit, time benefit, error benefit, customer satisfaction benefit, all those. So ensure benefit realization is there. Correct? Then resource, whatever is being used in the IT environment, resources optimization is there. Now in IT, you know, there is a cost connected with the resources, and cost must be connected to the benefits as well. Today, if you talk about what is the best system available in the market, but point is that whether best is suitable for you or not. So do not always run after best. Make sure that whatever you are choosing is currently being required by you and maybe fulfilling your at least next 3, 4, 5 year timeline requirement, because technology is going to change and also get cheaper with time. So this benefit, resources optimization or optimum use of resources, again, very important. So current resources and the spare resources which might be required, because we'll be talking about business BCM as well, business continuity management, in which we may be requiring some sort of additional resources, so that if anything goes wrong in the current resources, the additional resources can be used for continuity purpose. But again, the quantum of the additional resources, the cost which is involved in the additional resources must be aligned with your expectation, requirements, and budget related things as well. So first is ensure benefit realization, optimization of resources, and optimization of risk. So again, I'm connecting these three words. Optimization of risk is risk mitigation. Make sure that risk must be optimized, that is mitigated to a level which is under the acceptable level. So suppose you have set your acceptable level, anything below the acceptable level, that is okay, we are satisfied. Anything above the acceptable level, that means risk is above the level of acceptance. That means you have to put up some more controls to bring it below the acceptance level. Okay, so that is optimization of risk, means risk mitigation. Value creation, you know, that is what? Optimization of resources and ensure benefit is making sure that from performance perspective, you are aligned with the process. So this is the concept of governance, which is in technically talking about enterprise governance, which has two broad aspects: corporate governance and business governance. Okay. Now, when you are talking about implementation of this governance model in the IT environment, you are talking about implementation of ITG, which is IT governance, GEIT, which is governance of enterprise IT, or EGIT. I've already told you, this is COVID 4.1 term, or this is COVID 5 term, and this is COVID 2019 term. So although technically these three terms are talking to a single aspect. So there is a systematic approach of implementing GIT, and this approach has been given in your module in the same format, right? So that is making sure first, whenever an organization is going for IT involvement, it has to be aligning the IT goals with the business goals. So that is the first step. Again, there are questions which have been asked on this particular line only multiple times, that what is the first step that needs to be done in the enterprise governance or EGIT or GIT related thing. The first step is making sure that the IT goals must be aligned with the business goals. Again, these are the keywords. Making sure that you formalize and implement the right IT governance process. Which IT governance process or which IT governance framework is suitable for you, for your organization, for the type of work you are doing. Formalize and implement that. Then another important aspect is making sure you have an IAS organization structure. That means the entire IAS related team, from IT strategy committee to IT steering committee to CTO to CIO, fine, that is chief technology officer, chief risk officer, chief security officer, chief information officer, fine, data administrator, and there can be multiple people underneath them as well who are fulfilling different roles in the entire IT environment. The entire IT organization structure or organization structure connected to the IT must be crafted, must be aligned, and it must be followed in a systematic manner. Fine. And when I'm talking about follow, that means now rules, regulations, the duties, the responsibilities are distributed in terms of IT organizational structure, not a normal organizational structure. Because now we have shifted the entire process to a IT environment. And that is the thing which is being there for segregation duties, defining out roles and responsibilities. You might have heard about multiple frameworks wherein, this is control and duties are assigned, and you are able to monitor them specifically. You might have gone through certain audits and certain aspects wherein wrong alignment of duties are there, IDs, passwords are not rightly set, find employees are wearing low privileges or high privileges. In totality, if a right organization structure is there, then your CIA, that is confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the resources, will be in the right hand. Otherwise, this particular trait, which is CIA trait, can be breached out. Correct. So that is for effective implementation. Then make sure whatever you have done from the IT angle must be communicated to all stakeholders. All stakeholders, because if stakeholders are not aligned, actual outcomes are either not visible or people are unable to link their expectations with the outcomes. So those communications and the desired vision to all the stakeholders is another big responsibility, and which is being taken care in a very systematic manner by the media department or some other the releasing departments, or maybe whenever you are preparing some reports, annual reports and IS reports, or giving some sort of news and hearings to the public or your stakeholders or your employees and government bodies, and all this has to be there. Then you make sure that everything in the IT environment, whatever you are doing or whatever you are planning to do, is not outside your portfolio. It must be an investment as a portfolio. That means everything which is being done is taking care of your portfolio aspects, and it is being aligned to the work process and making it as an organization part. It's not like anything alien entity or an outside entity within your organization. So plan, align, and manage IT-enabled investment as a portfolio for your organization. Then whenever the IT-related things are there, you have to train the staff, you have to make sure that people are aligned in using of those things. That is, operation part of the IT process is equally important as implementation part. Because as a technical person, I can develop a lot of good things for you. As an auditor, you can audit, but ultimately the users have to use it for the maximum outcome for it, right? So enable operations and implementation. But this needs to be done very specifically, because that aligns to the performance measurement or performance management system as well, which is you have to make sure KPIs, key performance indicators, key risk indicators, key goal indicators must be there, and some sort of lead or lag indicators must be there, that is either predefined or post-defined of the execution of process. So these things will be there, are there. So these terminology which I am talking about, KPI, key performance indicators, KGI, key goal indicators. So goals are business goals, performance are process goals, and risks are related to any problem which may come up. So indicators of all these things are actually giving you a right indication that the controls are working perfectly, the goals are aligned appropriately, or the processes are performing as intended or giving the efficient outcome, correct? At the same time, whenever you've implemented IT, you know that technology is ever expanding, and the requirements of the business and compliances are also growing exponentially. At the same time, users are also growing, the internet related things are growing. So you cannot make sure that one size, or we can say develop a solution for today, is applicable for the lifelong. No, you have to embed new approaches just to make sure your entire IT investment is being used for as long as possible. You all have seen, from banking to insurance to income tax, fine, to railways, to applications you might be using. Every organization who is developing IT-based solution is putting up new and new features and processes and requirements into their system to make it align. Fine, so embedded new processes, and make sure you are making the things which are supporting, sustaining, and in regular communication. That means anything which can come up new, the risk which can come up, the communication that needs to be done, any new feature added, any existing things modified, any compliances forcefully implemented, those must be communicated, implemented, and executed properly during the entire the enterprise governance process, correct? So this is a systematic way for implementing EGIT, ITG, or GIT in an organization. It's a systematic 8-step process, and these 8 steps or these 8 terminologies and statements are given in your module as well, right? Now, what are certain GRC, that is risk, governance, and compliance framework, out of which COVID 2019 framework is the maximally applied and talked about framework in the IT or IS environment. Along with that is also the vastly discussed framework in your module as well. So when it comes to COVID 2019 framework, if properly implemented, it can improve a lot of things. And these again terms can come up as an option in your examination, which of the following is or which of the following is not the benefit of COVID implementation. So make sure these terminologies are there in your module, and this can be seen as a summary in front of you as well, that it is going to benefit in almost all areas of quality, achieving goals, operational, effectively management, Fine, ensuring organization getting value on investment, and making sure all sort of compliance related part, whether laws, regulations, and contractual agreements are being implemented and executed properly. Now, when it comes to COVID 2019, the entire framework is technically divided into two basic parts. One is the governance part and one is the management part. And that is by default is there in the COVID principles also, that is separating governance and management aspects. So we'll be talking about principles just immediately after it, but make sure that there are two basic parts, that is governance and management. And in those parts, there are actually, you can say, there are 5 domains. And in 5 domains, 4 fall under management category, 1 comes under governance category. So what is the domain? So the first domain is what? EDM, that is evaluate, direct, and monitor. Then there is second domain, third domain, fourth domain, fifth domain, that is APO, align, plan, and organize, BAI, build, acquire, implement, DSS, delivery, support, service and support, and MEAs, monitor, evaluate, and assess. I do not want you to get into much detail of it at this point of time. Just make sure that these terminologies, EDM, APO, BAI, DSS, and MEA must be known to you. Out of which something which is again maximum time asked in examination is the governance domain. Fine. So EDM, evaluate, direct, and monitor. So evaluation of things, direction, and monitoring of things is something which is related to governance aspects, and they have asked questions on governance domain multiple times. Correct? Any doubt? I am unable to see anything in the chat box as of now, so I am realizing that you all are synchronized. Then, in COVID 2019, as I have already told you, there are principles. So the differentiation in COVID 5 and 9 is that in COVID 5, there were 5 principles. In COVID 2019, there are 6 principles. Okay, so what are these 6 principles? First is making sure that whatever is being done in the IT environment must provide value to the stakeholders. Again, it's a common term, stakeholders, and you are much more knowledgeable than me in evaluating this particular word as stakeholders, not stockholder. It is stakeholder. So every stakeholder must get some value. The value which is being expected by them. If it is there, that's yes, you can say COVID principles and COVID framework is being implemented perfectly. Then you have to make sure that you have to use a holistic approach for implementing things. That means holistic means end-to-end approach, or you can say a comprehensive approach which takes care of all aspects of it. All aspect means security aspects, development aspects, auditing aspects. Fine, you can talk about networking aspects. That means a holistic approach of developing the entire things into the COVID guidelines. Then this is a dynamic governance system, and this is something which is a differentiating principle from COVID. It was not there in COVID 5. It is newly introduced in COVID 2019. It is a new principle from COVID 2019 perspective. You may have a question connected to that, although comparison is not there in your course, but still. So dynamic governance. So today governance cannot be static governance as well. The governance aspects and governance domains or governance related parts needs to be continuously elaborated, developed, and modified with time. Then comes distinct governance and management that clearly state that policy makers, which is the governance body, and the implementer, which is the management body, must be completely differentiated from each other. There should be no alignment, no linkage of it. Then comes tailored to enterprise needs. So COVID 2019, even though COVID 5 is also having the same, 2019 also comes up, that it is not a rigid framework. It can be modified, adaptable, and implementable in any size and any type of the organization. So it's not like only larger organizations or the organization which are having good budgets and high technical needs can implement it. Even the smallest of the organization can implement COVID principles. And these 6 things are again not a rocket science. End-to-end governance, that means no aspects in the entire IT field is being left out in the COVID framework. So it takes care of every aspect of the governance, right? So these are 6 principles which are stated out here. And yes, there can be a couple of questions which can be asked from the principle angle as well. Maybe a particular principle is explaining what, so out of those 4 options you can choose, or maybe the explanation is given top, you have to choose the right principles from it. Or maybe which of the following is not a principle or is a principle. These are the simple questions which can be asked, right? Now, in COVID 2019, there are components, although these were earlier known as enablers. They were known as enablers in COVID 5. These are just renamed as components, although the terminologies and the things are same. I will have a different model of explaining you the components, although it will remain the same, but I'll give you a systematic way for understanding or memorizing things. First, what is required in an organization from the top management perspective? Fine, as I've already told you, the governance plays a very important role. It should come up first. Similarly, when it comes to components, I believe that first thing to come is making sure that principal policies and procedures are there. Once you have drafted what needs to be done, fine, then you can talk about how it needs to be done. That is the processes. So when it comes to principle, that becomes what in a precise manner. Processes are pretty much detailed, and every principle can have multiple processes for execution. Fine. So for me, I am not putting up any numbers for you. Fine. But just for memorizing, I am putting a sequence for you. So this can be first. This can be named as second one. Okay. So principal processes, policies are there. So you can draft process accordingly. When the process is there, the third in the same understanding process comes up, you have to have a structure for it. Structure means post. I'm not talking about people. Posts which are there. So there has to be ex post. Maybe suppose CEO is a post. So what are the roles and responsibilities of a CEO? Whosoever comes up must come up with their skills, expertise, and qualification accordingly. But people is the last part of it. So post needs to be defined. There is a well-defined organization structure has to be there so that you know how duties, roles, and responsibilities are, or you can say, have you heard about RACI chart? This can be connected out here. That is responsibility, accountability, consulting, and inform. So organization structure once is there. These RACI related terminologies can be given to those, and you know that whom to consult, whom to inform under the hierarchy, who have to be responsive, and what are the flow of work in an organization. Once this particular structure is there, every people out there or every post out there must work with certain culture, ethics, and behavior. So there has to be every particular post should comes up with their own code of conduct and ethics and behavior related aspects of it. So for me, that comes in a sequence 4 for memorizing perspective. Okay. Once this particular post is there, what is needed? What we need that with this principle, executing these processes, sitting at this particular post, using this culture, ethics, and behavior, the individual must generate some information out of it. Until unless whatever they are generating is not information, that does not make sense to me. Now, for generating this information, what is required is you need certain sort of service infrastructure and application. That becomes what? 6th, right? And then become the 7th component is what? People with the required skills and competencies to sit at a particular post, make sure this process are executed, make sure this culture, ethics, and behaviors are implemented, make sure this information is generated, and these kind of applications and service infrastructure must be used effectively. So for me, it becomes first the principal policies and procedures, then processes, then becomes organization structure, then becomes culture, ethics, and behavior, then becomes information, then comes infrastructure, and then becomes people, skills, and competencies. Although these are 7 components, but these are not, again, a way in which only COVID or ISACA has put up an effort to develop these. This has been done and implemented from ages. We are using these processes or these way of selecting some individual, aligning the duties or responsibility of an individual in the same manner. It is just a new terminology which comes up in front of you. Okay, so make sure for memorizing perspective, you can use this 7, the sequence which I have given to you. Otherwise, technically, there is no first and no second. Then another framework which is connected to GRC is what? ISO and IEC related frameworks, out of which 27,000 series is something which is important, and 21,001 is being given out here in your module, which talks about certain 14 controls and 10 ISMS standards. Primary purpose of ISO 27001 is to implement certain right controls to the right place. And what are those 14 controls? So 14 are there stated here. Fine. Again, memorizing of these things is not that important, but you must know that yes, there are 14 controls, and it is as per desire to change. That is what is being required in the organization automation process. The controls or the category of controls can be implemented. They are not typically talking about what controls. They are talking about what? You have to make your operational entire process secure. Supplier relationship has to be there. Access control mechanisms has to be there. Physical environmental security section has to be there. That means these are the heads under which the entire control aspects of an organization can be made. And if these 14 areas are being taken care of specifically in an automation environment, then you can say you are fulfilling or abiding the norms of ISO 27000 series. Apart from ISO 27000, there are other connected standards of ISO as well, which is ISO 38500 given in your module. That's a corporate governance framework. Just align these words with this standard at this point of time. Now, just to tell you that in technically the back frame of mind of all these standards is same. Again, corporate governance talks about what? EDM. And I've already told you that EDM is one, which is there in COVID 2019 as well, again, the EDM process. So technically speaking, both of them are having the same ideology. It is just the way of implementing. So do not confuse yourself that all these standards are completely different. They are vague. No, the mindset, the ideology behind these standards is the same. Yes, the approach of implementing or maybe the methodology or the framework might be slightly different, but ideology is same. Fine. So again, it talks about corporate governance, talks about EDM only. ISO 31000 is a framework which is there. Again, it is talking about typically IT risk management. There is ISO 22301, which talks about what? Continuity aspects and all. ISO 12207 again is there, which is related to system development and all. So technically, there are these standards. I do not want you to memorize, but make sure that these keywords, if it is risk management, ISO related thing, risk management, you can take it 31,000. If it is BCM, business continuity management, or you can say business continuity planning, it can be talked about 22301. 12207, fine, is related to system development. So these standards, if are known to you or are there in your module or in an examination, I think these keywords will help you out in learning which is the right option to choose from. Then comes risk management. As I've already told you, GRC is governance, risk and compliances. So governance, we have already talked. Compliances, I am going to talk in the next slide. Risk-related things will be covered in module 4 and 5, where it talks about multiple risks from environmental perspective, physical perspective, administrative perspective. Fine. We will be talking about small part of risk, which is from the application system point of view. Fine. We will be talking about that. When it comes to compliances, there are a few compliances which are there in your module. Make sure that these are known to you. Information Technology Act 2000, which has been amended in 2008 and currently being applicable in the same manner, is being there. Out from this, there are certain sections which I feel like must be known to you. Section 43A, Section 66 entire A, Section 67, Section 69, Section 72. There are these 3, 4, 5 sections that must be known to you, that what these sections are all about. For knowing the briefing of it, you can take a reference from the BEAR Act. Fine. And this will be just making sure that if there is a case study based question, that this particular section in which a child pornography related issues are there, which particular Information Technology Act 2000 Amendment 2008 section is applicable out there. So section 69 talks about that. Fine. When it comes to what are the the acts which are considered as a wrong act under which some sort of imprisonments and punishment can be given, section 43A talks about that. So these kind of brief alignment is required, for which I request you to go through BEAR Act and just talks about these few sections, including section 70, 72. Fine. Just make sure these 6 odd sections are there in your mindset. Then there is Personal Data Protection Bill, which I am expecting, because see, it was 2019 draft, again modified in 2021, but 21 has been withdrawn back, and 2019 framework is now been again slightly modified, and I'm expecting it has to be presented in this winter session of the Parliament. So once this particular bill will be implemented, that becomes an act. But although some part of this particular bill has been taken away or taken as a part of ordinances and all, and already been implemented in some other manner. But in technically complete bill, I'm expecting this to happen. But this is all related to personal data protection, because Government of India is now realizing that individual data, which is now being into digital format, whether it is a location related things, your credit card related information, your personal information, your health related information, all these things comes under personal data. And those personal data must be safeguarded specifically, so that nobody should be able to use this in their own personal interest benefits, or maybe bargaining you, or ransoming you in some or the other manner, and breaching out your confidentiality and privacy things. So those personal data protection bill is there. Similarly, there is general data protection regulation, which is by EU, that is European Union, which has already been implemented. And our personal data protection bill has been an upgraded version of GDPR. Fine. General data protection regulation. So just these 3 basic compliances must be known to you, not in detail. Don't get into much memorizing or detailing part of it. Okay. Fine. Then comes, you have to make sure that there has to be successful GRC implementation. So as an IS auditor, this is a role, or this is a responsibility of yours. So if it has been implemented properly, as in the initial point we have already discussed, there are certain benefits which can come up. These are the certain problems or reductions in the processes, issues, areas which can be overcome Fine, if a GRC implementation is there. Now, as I've already told you, when it comes to implementation of GRC, obviously the ultimate outcome is to increase the performance of a system. So performance management related aspects are again being taken or talked about in your module. So goal settings is to be important. So from organization perspective, as again talked in the initial aspect, what needs to be done is that making sure your IT goals are aligned with the business goals. Correct? So setting up goals is a very important aspect. So that is goal setting is important. Then KPIs and KRIs, I've already told you, key performance and key risk indicators must be there. And those things either can be set in advance, so that becomes as lead indicators, or else if you are setting up at the later part, that becomes what? Lag indicators. Correct? For doing all this, balanced scorecard approach, strategic balanced scorecard approach, or a normal BS balanced scorecard approach can be there. And balanced scorecard approach related questions again are very expected in the examination. So there are 4 angles into it. Again, no sequence. But there has to be financial angle, there has to be internal business process angle, there has to be learning and growth aspect, there has to be customer aspect. So where a balanced scorecard approach is implemented, you have to understand that these are the 4 areas wherein you have to improve your performance, and performance measurement related aspects needs to be categorized before. One is financial benefit should be there. So very well financial benefit alignment, specifically benchmarking sort of things, and making sure you have a evaluation aspect for it. Internal business process, with time people must mature. Fine, so internal business process must be connected to stakeholders, customers and all. Learning and growth, that means people must learn and growth with time. Your vision should be refined in a process. That is learning and growth aspects for improvement is there. And customer as an individual must always expect certain higher values delivered to them. So that is customer aspects. So when it comes to performance management, one standard framework, which is balanced scorecard approach, is being there in your module, implemented widely in almost all the organization. And these are the 4 areas or 4 dimensions, you can say that, which are connected to balanced scorecard approach. Fine. So that cover up the GRC approach. Now I'm moving forward for your business continuity aspect, which is BCM. So when it comes to business continuity, you all are aware about 2 terminologies, which is BCP, which is business continuity planning, and DRP, which is disaster recovery planning. Now let me quickly go through these 2 terms for you. BCP is an ongoing process. BCP is an ongoing process that makes sure that business should not stop in any conditions. So small incidences, small problems or issues must be solved out as and when they occur, or maybe in the fastest possible manner, so that business should not stop in any way out, right? But whenever there is an incident which can create a havoc in an organization, and that havoc is disrupting multiple processes, maybe also disrupting your life related aspects, also maybe threatening for the humans as well, maybe some sort of ransomware attack, maybe some bomb threatening out there, and maybe some pandemic related which have recently been striked out. So if something is there, which if some incident is there which can be categorized as a disaster, then only DRP or disaster recovery plan is being activated. Otherwise, it is a BCP, which is an ongoing process. Technically, DRP is considered as a subset of BCP. Fine. From this aspect, you must understand that every organization has an interest of making sure that business should not stop in the weirdest of the circumstances. Correct? And for doing so, they are putting up maximum level of controls to make sure that risk should not get materialized. We are automating so that humans are, or maybe the dependency of humans should be as reduced as possible, not eliminated. But still, you know that there are areas, there are incidences which are unanticipated. You cannot think of them. So if those incidences come up, you have to have a BCP and DRP plan connected to that. So that means these plans needs to be crafted, needs to be developed, needs to be tested, needs to be implemented in an organization, but none of the organization wants to actually use these plans and programs because they do not want some disruptions or incidences from the negative aspect should be there in an organization. But if it is there, which particular incident is important that needs to be termed on the priority basis? For that, there is a simple word which is known as BIA, business impact analysis. So any BCP or DRP related development works on only one aspect, that is impact. So until unless this impact related things is understandable, is being grabbed, is being discussed openly in an organization, and you know the impact could be bigger, smaller, medium, whatever the size and dimensions you are going to evaluate the impact, the intensity of the BCP or DRP cannot be explained. So if the impact is high, yes, you have to go with BCP and DRP. If the impact is very low of a particular incident or a particular risk, then obviously BCP, DRP related requirements are equally proportionately reduced, right? So impact must be analyzed. So again, the question can come up in the organization on maximum time, that what is the first thing? First becomes what the impact. Fine. And the management only understand from this impact terminologies that what impact, that is business loss, customer loss, credibility loss, fine, can happen to an organization, or some sort of compliance related aspects can come up or can be imposed on the organization because of discontinuity or any kind of disruption. Then only the intensity of BCP DRP can be explained to them. Correct? Then the terms which is MCBO, that is minimum business continuity objective, that is in the weirdest of the circumstances, what is the bare minimum work that needs to be continued? For every organization, this bare minimum is varying. So again, one size fit all strategy does not suit here. Correct? So this refers to the minimum business related thing that needs to minimum level of services and product that is acceptable, that must be continued in whatever the situation you are in. Minimum acceptable outrage. This is also termed as maximum tolerable outrage, maximum allowable downtime. What is that? That is the maximum timeline which can be sustained without the availability of resources or without continuing the business. Again, every organization has a different timeline. When it comes to railways, it can be few minutes, but when it comes to aircraft services, it can be few seconds only. Because any server down in the aircraft related aspects for a few seconds also can create a havoc, and there can be a connectivity between what the flight is flying in the air and the ground level monitoring staff. So for them, maximum acceptable outrage may be in seconds. But for a kirana wala or maybe for a businessman, this acceptable outrage can be for minutes, for hours, for days, for months. As the timeline is higher, the need of BCP and DRP goes considerably low. So again, you have to match this out. What is the recovery time objective? That is the predetermined time within which the recovery must happen. The recovery must happen. That is recovery time objective. And what is recovery point objective? That is maximum data loss an organization can sustain, can withstand. Fine. What is resilience? That is the ability of an organization to resist being affected by an incident. Suppose there is an incident, but you as an individual feel like, no, this incident is not applicable on us. We are way ahead or we are way beyond the range of this incident. That is your resilience power. So your resilience power must be known to you. Then only the BCP DRP plan are developed. Or else you can say that once the BCP DRP plans are developed and implemented, whatever is left out must be part of your resilience. Right? For developing a sound BCP or DRP, every incident must be understandable by you. What are the incidences? That is the things which can go wrong. Any incident which is small enough, that is the impact is high, leave it. Any incident which is minute but can be covered up within the organization, you can take it as a BCP. But any incident which is bigger enough, which can be considered a disaster. Suppose there is a fire. Fire is an incident, but fire in a washroom, fire in a parking area, or fire in a server room, or fire in a room where entire office premises, or you can say a big fire eruption is there. Obviously, you need to have a different plan for all these things. And an incident as a fire in a washroom, or maybe fire in a server room may be considered as a disaster. Correct? So this intensity, if varies, obviously your BCP and DRP related plan must also vary accordingly. What is DRP? So DRP is actually 4 phases, you can say that. So crisis, emergency, recovery, and restoration. These phases are in sequence. Make sure this is known to you. Again, there are almost every attempt there is a question connected to these phases. So crisis phase comes up immediately once the incident comes up. As soon as the crisis phase ends, the emergency phase starts. As soon as emergency phase ends, recovery phase starts. And as soon as recovery phase ends, you are into restoration phase. Now, what is that? Crisis means as soon as an incident or a disaster has happened, or an incident has happened which can be termed as a disaster, the crisis is there. Now you are into a troublesome situation because unexpected things have happened. Now you have to find out what needs to be done. That is crisis. It comes up with few minutes to few hours only. Emergency phase comes up after the crisis. That is the phase in which you try to make sure that the right people must be informed, maybe medical facilities, maybe insurance facilities, maybe fire brigade and certain other responses, maybe the business management staff also. That is emergency response phase. Recovery phase is the phase which can start after the emergency phase and can continue for few months. That is the phase in which you are systematically recovering whatever has gone wrong or whatever has disrupted by the incident. Once the recovery is completed, what needs to be done is that making sure that you are coming back to the actual premises, starting your work at that premises or in the same fashion. That is called the restoration phase. Correct? So again, this cannot go in a random, it has to be very sequential. So crisis come first, few seconds or few minutes to few hours. Emergency, again, few minutes to few hours. The hours can be higher than as compared to crisis phase. Recovery phase from few days to few months, and then the restoration phase. Okay. What are the phases of BCP? BCP has 6 phases. That is, start from impact. As I've already told you, after impact, you have to go for risk assessment. Once you analyze, okay, this could be the impact, let's make sure we are putting up that higher impact thing on a control aspect. So risk assessment needs to be planned accordingly. Thereafter, if you still feel like, no, the risk, the assessment or the mitigation plan which we have implemented is not perfect enough, still the risk can come up, then you go for planning and designing of BCP. Unless your risk is beyond that level that your BCP and DRP needs to be crafted or impact is still considerable, you are not going forward for it. So it has to be first, second, and then third, planning and designing of BCP. But after planning and designing, you cannot implement it directly, you have to test it. And there are these 5 ways for testing which are mentioned, and make sure these 5 ways are known to you. These are there in your module, explained very specific in a very small terminologies. This must be there in your mindset. But without testing, it is practically impossible to implement a plan or any plan. Correct? Once the testing is there, you cannot again implement, because you have to make sure that people are aligned as per this. Because see, if there is a fire related plan, there can be a small set of people who are connected to that, okay, you are responsible when there is a fire eruption. When it is a server down, obviously there are technical people who are connected to that. Suppose there is a bomb threat, then obviously there are different people who are connected to that. So in an organization, everybody is not aligned to the entire plans. Fine, you have to find out, okay, out of 100 people, 5 people will be responsible for fire related issues. Again, next 5 people can be related to XYZ, next 5 people can be related to PQR related issues. So this kind of alignment has to be there, so that rest of people, if that particular fire comes up, 95 are out, those 5 are responsible for taking things out there. So you are saving the human lives and not creating a panic within the organization as well. So training of staff continuously is an ongoing process, because you never know. You have developed a plan in 2010, trained the team in 2010, but incidents has not happened in 10 years. It has happened in 2020. Then the people would have changed. They would have forgotten what needs to be done. They're getting multiple job roles and shifting of employabilities as well. Then if there is a fire eruption in 2020, there is nothing or no plan which is executed. So plan development, plan implementation, plan testing, plan related training, and plan related maintenance. This has to be an ongoing process. It should not be a one-time process. Okay. Then maintenance of the plan is there, because you know there can be shifting of assets, shifting of your premises, changing in manpower, changing in the compliances, changing in your asset allocation. So maintenance is equally and very important. So 6 things again in phases of BCP are going in very sequence. You cannot change, or you should not change the sequence. This must be known to you. Okay. And once the BCP is been there, you have to develop something which is known as BCM manual. Because see, every time training and retraining of staff is not possible. Somebody have forgotten of something, you cannot organize the training every now and then. There has to be well-crafted, well-articulated manual, which can be taken as a reference manual in terms of any hiccups, any issues. So manual means a documented process of these things. And this is again on auditor's roles to make sure that development of manual is there, testing is there, employees are trained, upgradation has to be there. There has to be an impact-related issues, and those are important enough for which the plan needs to be developed. And that is what is talked about, what auditing of BCP. Correct? But again, along with that, so auditing, let's take it first. We'll move on to the previous slide later on. So auditing is an ongoing process. Again, it's not like one-time process. Now, what are the different types of backup and recovery sites? So when you talk about BCP, although it talks about manpower, infrastructure, networking, devices, data also, but when you talk about from the IT perspective, typically let's talk about multiple backups, because data is something which is not recoverable in any format. Recoverable means what? Not recoverable from the market. Nobody is going to give you your data. Whatever the amount you are ready to spend, nobody is having your data. So rest every asset, maybe furniture, computers, AC, networking equipments, manpower, all these things can be procured from the market. Something which is unique to you is what? Data. So full backup, incremental backup, differential backup, mirror backup. These are the 4 different types of backups. So when it comes to full backup, that is from always, that is from 0th day to nth day. Whenever you are taking suppose mth day, so again 0 to mth day. So that means it is to be from starting till end, the entire data needs to be backed up. It happens, but in the very less frequency. Reason, it is going to be time consuming and resource hungry process. So it's not always full backup. What you normally do is what? Incremental or differential backup. So what is the differentiation between these two? Incremental backup is whatever is new and whatever is changed is backed up. That is what incremental backup. And differential backup is only whatever is changed. And when I'm talking about new and change, it is from the last backup. Suppose last backup I have taken on 1st of January 2022. Fine, then every month I'm taking backup, but every month I'm taking either incremental or differential backup, Fine, so it is a backup of February, it is a backup of March. Suppose something goes wrong in April, then obviously I have to restore this first, then February, then March, then things are okay. So in between you take up this. Suppose again on 1st January 2023, I decided that, okay, I need to take the entire backup. That becomes full backup. Then I can remove or delete these backups. I can start taking incremental or differential backups thereafter. Now, incremental or differential, that depends whether I am only changing the existing data or new data or new records are also added to that. So new plus change is incremental. Whatever is new and change from the last backup, and whatever is only change is being backed up from the last backup is known as differential backup. And when we are taking backup of backup, that is known as mirror backup. Okay. Now, backup is not so important. The important thing, or backup is that important, but not so important, because you need to understand that recovery side needs to be there. See, if you have a data, okay, I say that I have a pen drive, my data is there in this, my entire backup is there. But if the infrastructure is being damaged, what I'm going to use this particular data, where I'm going to use it. So recovery sites are equally important, I'm saying it. So you have to make sure that you have to have a recovery site from where you can actually start your business operation when the disaster or a disruption happens. So keeping a data in your pen drive is not going to benefit you until you have a process and you have a system, you have a networking to restore your data and start your operations. So those are known as recovery sites. So when it comes to recovery site, those are mirror sites, hot site, warm site, cold site, reciprocal, and outsourced sites. Let me just give you a quick. This is just a simple word I am putting for your understanding. This is fully cubed and fully operational site. Obviously, it needs a lot of cost, so every organization will not be able to bear that. Hot site is fully cubed site, but not fully operational. For making it operational, you have to restore the data and make it operational. Warm site is partially equipped site. Cold site is least equipped site. Okay. When it comes to reciprocal site, these are the sites in which the organization is not having the capacity to build up their own infrastructure. So what they have done is they've gone for a reciprocal arrangement. Suppose you and me have decided that, okay, if something goes wrong, I can use your resources, and if something goes wrong at your end, you can use my resources. Fine. So rather than me setting up an additional resources, we are doing some sort of contractual arrangement. That is known as reciprocal site. And today we are going for outsourced site as well. That may be some sort of data center site wherein we can start your business operations, or maybe some sort of cloud services site, or SaaS services or PaaS services from where we can start your business operation in the case of a disaster. Those are known as outsourced sites. So anyhow, but recovery sites have to be there, because otherwise, what will I do with that particular backup of data if I'm not having a recovery site in the case of a bigger disaster which has happened? Okay, although if there is no bigger disaster, if it is just a disruption of data, then data backup is the only critical thing which needs to be there with you. So that suppose somebody has hacked your server, corrupted your data, you have a backup, you can restore it and start your business operations. So your infrastructure was ready. It was just the data corruption and data manipulation which has been done. So your backup is important. But in the case of disaster, backup and recovery sites both are equally important, must be given equal importance. Got it? Any doubt in BCP? So this covers up your module 2 as well. Now module 3, system development, although it was there studied in your IPCC level, in your CA final level also by most of you, I'm just going to give you a brief of it in 10 minutes or so. What exactly is that? So what is differentiated in your module is that you have to understand that entire system development should not be taken, or should be taken as a project actually, and should not be taken as a IT related aspect. It has to be taken as a project. So because now you are going for automation of your business process, so you cannot get rid, or you cannot take it as a different thing apart from it's a project for you. Fine. So what is project? What is program? What is portfolio? You are aware of it. So basically, the smallest of the thing is a project. Fine. Multiple projects clubbed up together, connected and related. See, that's a word. So programs is a group of related or similar projects. That's a program. A project is a temporary thing which starts and ends at a particular point. So it has a starting point, it has an ending point. Program is group of multiple projects which are related to each other. And when it's come to portfolio, it refers to the groups of related or unrelated projects or programs. So clear-cut differentiation, project versus program and portfolio must be known. And when we are talking about a system development, it has to be taken as a project, right? It has to be taken as an entire project for your organization. Okay. So what are the steps involved in your project management are you have to have a starting point, you have to entire planning, the entire execution, you have to control, and you have to go for closing. Similarly, when you are going for system development also, you must understand that what are the things which you have initiated the issues that you have to go for a system development. Once the issues are so big and so important that you have to go for development, then yeah, systematic planning is required for developing an automation system. You all have seen the banking automation, the railways automation, the shopping related automation, which has been done in last around a decade or so. And you can realize that there has to be a initiation, that is this, the trigger point, which forces you for go for automation. A systematic planning is done, because if planning is not done, whatever you are investing can go vague and is not aligned to each other. Then a particular execution is to be there for automating that particular feature or the entire system. Then a controlling and monitoring aspect is there. That is the budget, the process, the requirements, the risks are under controls, budgets are under control, the process is under control. All these things are there. And there has to be closing. That means once the feature is there, it has to be implemented. And yes, after closing also, you can continuously going forward for the modification part into that. And you all have seen that if there is a project which has been closed by IRCTC or developing on an online ticketing platform, but still they are making what? The continuous upgradation to that. So that is what is known as entire project planning. This is connected to the entire system development process. It is no difference into that, you can say that. So system development is actually a subset of the project development part of it. Now, why we need system development? That is for process automation. You must understand the need first. It is not like you are going for automation because the competitors are going, because everybody is going, so let's go for it. No, it has to be a need of yours. It has to be a genuine need, or needs must be quantified, needs must be stated in terminologies, and you must be able to digest those needs. Then only automation needs to be systematically happening. Then there has to be systematic needs and benefit of SDLC, because system development life cycle is a process that needs to be executed very specifically. Although there are multiple ways in which the process can be implemented, like waterfall approach, prototyping approach, rapid development approach, there are multiple ways in which system development can be there. But the process of development must be known to you. So when it comes to process, there are multiple phases. So phase 1, 2, 3 to phase 8, these are stated phases in your module as well. So from pre-investigation to requirement to SDL's system analysis and acquisition phase. So I've just given these phases in in detailing part for you. So that on left hand side, that is the phase. On the right hand side, there are certain tasks that needs to be done in that phase. So pre-investigation talks about identification of problem, talks about feasibility studies. So again, these are technical words, and these are 8 feasibility tests which are specifically being known, and you must know that these terminologies are there in your mindset for examination perspective. Question can come up from each phase. So whatever I have done out there is actually a summarization of those phrases, summarization of the entire module into a bulleted point for you. So pre-investigation, these, then comes requirement analysis phase, again quantified, again stated in specific terms. System analysis phase, again, what are there in analysis part of you, what are the roles, and everywhere you can understand that I have put in a auditor role out there. It is just to tell you that auditor involvement is there in system development phase from day 1 onwards. It's not like you have to come up at one point of time to justify your role. No, without the role or without the involvement of auditor, it's not possible that clear-cut alignment of management requirements and the development team can be ensured, right? So system analysis phase, acquisition of resources phase, development phase, testing phase, and make sure testing related part must be very well understandable by you. I am expecting at least 3 to 4 questions from the testing itself. So black box, white box testing, alpha and beta testing, unit system integration testing, regression testing. These are the multiple tests. Those are there. Fine. Although technically the main headings of the testing is unit integration and system only. Fine, you can test individual part, you can group a few parts and test, you can group the entire system and test. But on what aspects I'm going to go for integration testing, it can be security aspect, it can be stress and volume aspects. Correct? I can test from blind angle, that is black box testing. That is, I'm not aware about the coding part, the functionality part of it. I'm just talking about input and output, that is black box. But if input and output along with that, I'm also involved into what is being done for getting this output. That is what I'm aware about the processing inside the system, the coding inside the system, the ideology inside it. That becomes what? White box testing. And if I'm combining black and white, that is some part is being blindly tested, some part is being tested with detailed investigation inside the system or involving the system. That becomes what? The gray box testing. So these are again, which are specifically being known to you, which is explained during your examination. But yes, 3 to 4 questions from this particular part is there. But expect at least one question from each of these phases in the examination minimum. Right? Then come the implementation part. You know that these are 4 ways of implementation. Expect at least 1 or 2 questions from implementation. That is direct, phased, parallel ways of implementation. Fine. And post implementation, there has to be systematic review. And maintenance part again is very important. And again, these are the 6 standard maintenance which are there. So scheduled, corrective, adaptive, perfective, preventive, and rescue or firefighting maintenance. There is no 7th maintenance. And these are again very standard. I think that was precisely being known to you as well. And you are all implementing this in the real-time scenarios also. Correct? After the system development phases are being grabbed by you, okay, you know that these are the steps or these are the phases that needs to be executed. But there is no systematic mechanism for using or implementing these phases. That is not like you have to go with first, then second, then third. For all this, you are to understand there are multiple approaches. If you are doing in a systematic manner, that is okay, after phase 1 completion completely, then you move to phase 2, then you move to phase 3, that is known as waterfall approach. Fine. If you are rotating things in a systematic manner, that you are developing a small part and then gradually expanding it to make it an entire system, that becomes a prototyping approach. Fine. Incremental approach is what? You are making sure different parts systematically aligned, developed separately, developed parallelly, and then you are integrating them. That becomes incremental approach. There is spiral approach, web-based approach, component-based approach. But today, what is more important is what re-engineering, reverse engineering, because automation is already been done in last 20 years. What we are doing is now is re-automation, upgrading the systems. So IR system upgraded, banking upgraded. I've just got a mail today by HDFC that they are upgrading their net banking system. That means now they are not into development of a new system. Development is still happening at a small, medium-sized organization. But when it comes to larger organization, they are into re-engineering and reverse engineering approach. That is making sure that system must be aligned to whatever is being best in the market, or else putting up new features into that. Okay, then becomes RAD, agile, object-oriented. These are the different approaches, and make sure at least 3-4 odd questions from these approaches is also there. So when I'm talking about system development, which is 18%, steps and these approaches are the only thing from where the question can ask. Question can be asked from directly from these approaches or from the auditor roles. Make sure that auditor role must be grabbed or understandable by you. But this cannot happen until you know what needs to be done. Then only you can verify those things to happen. Correct? What are the additional topics in system development? Is DevOps, DevSecOps, and secure SDLC. Now, why this is important? Because today, when you talk about development, it is not only development of system and uses of systems, which was earlier, which was Dev, that is development, and usage, that is operation parts of it, ops. But today, what is more important is that making sure things are secure. So it's not like DevSec, it becomes what? DevSecOps. So DevSecOps are not tools. These are documented processes which are aligning development, operation with securities in such a manner prior to the development, so that the entire development and executions are in the safer and secure environment. Again, make sure I'm just telling you, these are not technical tools. These are documented tools. These are the tools through which you can just map up development, security, and operations in a systematic manner. Okay, and when you are doing so, it becomes what? The secure SDLC rather than a normal SDLC process. Security has an integral part in the entire information system environment. Today, you cannot eliminate security. As you know, risks are growing, so security has to be there. So today, if you talk about it is being eliminated, it is DevSecOps, and it is not SDLC. It becomes what? Secure SDLC. Now, when I'm talking about secure SDLC, you must understand what are the controls that needs to be implemented inside the system, right? So that includes boundary controls, input controls, processing control, output control, storage controls. Okay, so every aspect, boundary controls means the login related controls, you can say that. Typically from application perspective, that becomes user access controls. Do not talk about the physical controls out here, because we are talking about application controls, not the physical controls. Physical control will be discussed by Suri sir in the next module. Fine. We are talking about only the application control. That is, from our application control perspective, boundary control becomes what? The control which are implemented on the logical boundaries. Logical boundaries. So firewall, fine, cryptography, your access controls, login IDs and password, these are known as boundary controls. Input controls are implemented just to make sure that wrong data entry should not happen into the system. Wrong input should not come up. So all validations which you face during filling up a forms out there are all input controls. Validation check, data check, sequence check, format check, number check. These are input controls. Even after input, the processing needs to be executed specifically. Every system is not allowed to go for processing. In IRCTC environment, the processing should happen at the central server because the alignment of tickets is very important. Fine. But when it comes to organization, or you can say the individual billing at a big bazaar, every counter which is being there can process things on its own. So processing, depending on the organization needs, can be scattered or can be decentralized, can be centralized. So processing controls are very much important. Anything which is not being processed for any reason must be recorded specifically and can be taken forward to an auditor or to an administrator for the right review, that why the problem has occurred. And you can find out what you said, root cause elimination for those problems. Output is generated in the format of printed output or audible or visual outputs. Output must be given to an individual who is authorized to see, visualize, or use that output in an official manner. If output goes into a wrong hand, it can create another problem for you. So anything related to controlling of output within the organization becomes output controls. Thereafter, also the storage, the data is important. So you are keeping the data today, or you can say today what is being there is that data is not being deleted. The deletion aspect of data or the elimination or formatting of data has been eliminated completely. So storage has to be there. The format of storage, size of storage, type of storage, or the duration of storage, all those things are equally important. So storage related controls falls into that. So whenever you are talking about application control, you can divide those things into 5 aspects: boundary, input boundary of application, input while the data is being into the application softwares, while the processing is being done, while the output is being generated, and then when the data is being stored for the further usage or for analytic purpose. That is what the application control is all about. Correct? Now, although we are well on time, but still I was interested in discussing few questions. Although I'll share these questions and answers with you at later part as well. So what needs to be understood is that don't panic. There are certain questions which are single liner questions, and there are certain questions which are a paragraph based questions, and there can be certain questions which are what case study based questions also, in which there can be a small scenario which is given to the scenario based questions. Fine. So when scenario questions are there, make sure those questions are the easiest one, but the time needs to be devoted systematically to understand the entire question, because now that becomes a detailed question for you. By default, it's like starting from here by here, you lost out the scenarios of it. So make sure while reading the question, you can take a pencil and you can start marking some of the other keywords. Don't use pen for it. You can use pencil for marking, or you can just put a dot out there for your reference that, okay, this is a keyword for us. Okay. When it comes to direct question like what is hardening of system, you must know what is the logic behind hardening is. So what is hardening? The word hardening is what putting up multiple controls in such a manner that your core asset, your core valuable thing must be protected by multiple layers of controls. That is called hardening. So what hardening becomes? Securing, configuring the system to minimize the security risk. So if hardening as a logic is known to you, then the answer comes obvious for you. Otherwise, it becomes lost out for you. Okay. When it comes to this questions like scenario based questions, you are put up as a sales manager, or you are put up as an auditor, as an IAS auditor. So you have to play a role out there. So put your feet into the shoes of that particular individual and think from that scenarios rather than chartered accountant point of view. Fine. So make sure when you are entering into the DSA examination, make sure that do not think from financial angle. That is very simple. No financial inclination should be there during the examination. Fine, keep this aside while entering. Second, identify keywords. Make sure that logic is there with you. Fine. Guessing and everything can come at the later part. Fine. So for me, when you are going forward for the examination, make sure that out of 240 minutes that you have, at least for 180 minutes, you should focus on only those Q&As which are in your vicinity that you are able to understand it. Fine. Next 20 minutes are for making sure that you are marking your sheet or answer sheet. Fine. You have to do this black and white or black in your answer sheets and all. You are marking that. Then last 40 minutes can be for those questions which are left out, or those questions which are outside your radar. Fine. So first 180 minutes, 20 minutes and 40 minutes. If you are able to manage your time in a specific manner, it's not tough to crack it out. And when I'm come to 200 odd questions, make sure that at least 150 odd questions must be handled here. At least 150 odd questions must be handled here. Okay, if they are there, you are by default on the safe zone. Last 40 minutes can be given to those questions which are 50, not within your controls, or maybe something which is going outside. You can put up a defocus on those. And maybe you can say out of this also 30 should be given to this. And last 10 minutes to make sure that none of the answer is being unmarked into your sheet. Reason, no negative marking is there. So you can go for the guessing part in the last 10 minutes. Okay, so these are the key things which I want to tell you related to module 1, 2, 3. Some tricks, that is, no financial inclination should be taken. Keywords, focus, logic should be focused. Divide your time in this manner for utilizing in the best possible way out. I have few questions out here from Tripti's side. Other than 6 module, is there any specific syllabus? Tripti, point 1, Institute has already given you a very comprehensive syllabus. I do not want anybody should look beyond it till you are getting into the highest auditing aspect as a professional. For clearing DISA examination, let's focus only on the module aspects of it. Make sure that topics from that, the questions which are behind the module, and at the same time, the question bank which has been shared by the faculties and the institute, and some sort of model test paper which are there shared by the institute, must be done by the participants. That is point 1. Past question for, see, that is very misconception that DISA 3 and DISA 2.0 are completely North Pole, South Pole apart from each other. No, you all have, you yourself are a part of the development team. You know that DISA 3.0 is an upgraded version for it. Fine, it's hardly 10 to 15% modification in the course is there. The logic is still remain the same. So DISA 2.0, your CISA question bank, your CISSP question bank, whatever is there is being relevant. Do not align yourself with 3 or 2. It's not 3 or 2. It is just next upgraded version, because you know technology is changing. So you have to go align with that. Fine. Tripti, if you want, I can share these presentations for your reference to be shared with the participants if you want. Right. And sir, to whom IS auditor should give report? No, especially not the financial officer. See, IS auditor has to give report to an organization which has been specially designated in the IS charter, primarily by the organization that who is the one who is responsible for signing that audit report, accepting that audit report. Apart from that, auditor is not allowed to involve or directly engage themselves with the any person, CEO, CTO, CISO, financial officers. No. Otherwise, if you become directly engaged with them, then the top management of the governing body will not be aware about what actually is being there wrong into the system that needs to be systematically been removed. Any superficial changes is going to create another havoc into this. So no, IS auditor should only report to a designated chief officer or CEO in an organization, or somebody who's been aligned typically with an IS auditor to submit or accept the reports. Apart from that, nobody in the organization, auditor engagement, auditor involvement should be there with them. Okay. Fine. So I'm stopping my presentation here because Suri sir is waiting.
Perfect, sir. Thank you so much for your enlightening session, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Tripti. And it was again nice interacting with you all. I am still available for any Q&As if there are there. Otherwise, over to Suri sir. Sir, welcome online.
Yes.
Great, sir. So over to Suri sir and over to Tripti for the next 1.5 hours. I have created the base, Suri sir. Now you have to create the entire building onto that. It's always there as same. Thanks, Tripti. Thanks, Suri sir.
Sir, thank you. Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah. And taking forward the queue now, I would like to invite our second eminent speaker, who is an international corporate trainer, consultant, business coach, faculty in the domain of IT and management, expertise in the area of ERP, SAP, data warehousing, and again, the list is unending, I must say. So with the brief introduction, I hand over the session to Professor Kapil Suri sir. Please welcome him, as in I hand over the session to you, sir.
Thank you, Tripti. Yes.
Sir.
Kindly just confirm I'm properly audible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfectly.
Tripti, how many audience are present right now?
Actually, sir. There are 50 plus people are here.
Okay. I am unable to see their list other than you. Even they can ask me the query directly, because I won't overutilize this time, because Saurabh already covered. So we are into the crack session. So people having the query, so in between, because we are into the last phase as well as considering the time also.
Yes, I will check and let you know, sir.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Trapti, just confirm my screen is also accessible.
Yes, completely.
My digital whiteboard is accessible.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Tripti. Thank you. So once again, good evening to all of you. All those sort of very nicely explain all the fundamentals with respect to module 1, module 2, as well as module 3. Ultimate objective, ultimate goal at this moment for you people, that anyhow to crack this examination, which is the ultimate goal. Although all of you want to become the expertise into this domain, as well as want to become the domain expert, as well as later on want to utilize, but at this moment, the prime focus is that anyhow to clear this examination. So just considering this, I'll just go with some key points. If you just honestly concentrate in place of here and there. So now all of you would agree that until unless there is no business organization, if there is no business, then there is no need of IT. Okay. Now, whenever we'll think about IS, then default business organization is there, and with respect to the business organization, we are looking for the solution with respect to the business process. Because whenever we'll think about the business organization, then each and every business, the backbone or the most, if you want to evaluate from the auditor point of view, whether we are doing the concrete audit, whether we are doing the statutory audit, any type of the audit, even with respect to the IS audit, which is one type of internal audit. So first of all, until unless, like Saurabh also emphasizes over this concept at the beginning, without understanding business, because we are using IS and IT with respect to each and every business organization. And at this moment, I hope all of you would agree that data is the lifeline and technology is the driver. Okay. So each and every business organization, they consider, irrespective of the nature, irrespective of the size of the business organization, whether a particular business organization is involved into the manufacturing business, or whether a particular business organization is involved into the service sector, whether it is a banking, whether it is an insurance, whether it is automobile, all consider that data is the lifeline and technology is the driver. But process model followed by one business organization is not equal to the process model followed by another business organization. And until unless auditor, because auditor is responsible, auditor is not a part of the business organization, auditor is not a part of the business cycle. Okay, auditor is not responsible to create the business cycle. Auditor play the key role at the end of the business cycle, and auditor is responsible to review, to examine, to evaluate productivity, effectiveness, efficiency, as well as under the current scenario, security of any business organization. Okay, so key term here is auditor is responsible to review, auditor is responsible to examine, auditor is responsible to evaluate. Okay, now what to review, what to evaluate, what to examine. Now under the IS audit, like what I mentioned a moment before, that each and every business organization, They are equipped with the technology and they are generating the data. But without understanding the fundamental of the business, that fundamental is nothing but it is the business process. It is the business process. And each and every business organization is integration of n number of different business processes. And whenever the business process execute, it will generate huge volume of data. Please just have a look. It is very easy. I'm 100% sure that out of 200, many of you, honestly, if just concentrate, very easily you people able to score minimum between 150 to 180, which is not a difficult task. Although the prerequisite to clear this examination is to score minimum 120, that is 60%. But many of you even can score 10% if you just, because this is just like the mathematics. Each and everything is a standard. Now, first term, that is the business. If there is no business, okay, then there is no need of IES, then there is no need of IIT. Okay. Now, within the business, whenever we'll think about the business, any business organization anywhere in the world. Okay. So each and every business is integration of n number of different business processes. Okay. And integration of business processes we known as the business model. Okay. And I hope all of you would agree with me that each and every business process is independent. Okay. And output of one business process is input for another business process. So quality of one business process is affect the quality of another business process. This is known as the pipelining. Okay. Then you people understood that where ERP is playing the key role and how the questions would be framed here. Now here, process like, in short, process like purchase, process like procurement, process like production, like even at this moment, you and me, we are into the training session, okay, according to organized by the DAP. Okay, so training is again a one type of a process. Okay, and now I come into the action after the Saurabh. So output of Saurabh is input for me. Okay, that's why Saurabh used the one term. I hope if you concentrated at the beginning, that is the total productivity. Once Saurabh delivered the session, so productivity of part 1 and productivity of part 2, that defined the total productivity. Okay, but I was not involved in executing the process executed by the Saurabh. That was independent, but output of that process is input for me. Okay, and during the session when he delivered, he generated the huge volume of data. Please just concentrate here. So whenever the business process execute, it will generate the data. And now here there is one more thing. Whenever we'll think about the, and there are number of questions, please kindly just concentrate whatever the term I'm using, definitely you will find the question. Okay. Now, whenever we'll think about the business process with respect to any business organization, I hope all of you would agree with me from the auditor point of view. Okay. All of you having the good experience, good exposure to perform n number of different type of audit, I assume. Okay, I am assured that all of you are thorough with the audit process. Now, whenever we'll think about the business process, now somebody is responsible to create the business process with respect to any business organization. Somebody is responsible to execute the business process. Somebody is responsible to provide solution, as well as when business process execute, then during the execution, if suppose business process face any type of hurdle, any type of issue, so somebody would be responsible to provide the support, which is known as the maintenance with respect to the business process. Okay. Now, as per the business need, as per the business requirement, if organization think about to enhance, improve the productivity of the business organization, Okay, then on regular basis, I hope all of you would agree with me that organization review their business process, and considering this concept, that is to enhance, improve the productivity, to enhance, improve the efficiency, organization always perform changes into their business process. Then they always apply one technique between the previous version and the new version of the business process. Okay, organization would remain the same, objective would remain the same, but to enhance, improve the productivity, to enhance, improve the efficiency, organization always perform changes into the business process. Version number 1, and on the basis of version number 1, organization generate the new version of the same business process, and in between they apply one technique. I hope all of you would agree with me, and this technique is known as BPR. That is the business process re-engineering. Re-engineering means redesigning, redesigning means restructuring. Okay, and ultimate objective is to enhance. Now here, who is responsible to look after? So with respect to each and every business process, I hope all of you would agree with me, there is a dedicated user who is responsible for the productivity, who is responsible for the quality, who is responsible for the efficiency of the business process, and that user is internal user whom we known as the process owner. With respect to the business organization, process owner, and there are many questions, like for example, with respect to the purchase department, there are many questions would come like this. With respect to the purchase department, purchase manager is a process owner, and purchase manager is a one type of internal user. Okay, then with respect to any branch down the line to any banking organization, maybe for time being, if we'll consider the case of State Bank of India, which is the largest bank in the country. Okay, so at the branch level, branch manager, I am saying, is responsible for the productivity of a particular branch. So branch manager is a one type of a process owner. Okay, at this moment, this session hosted by the Nagpur branch. So Nagpur branch chairman for time being we can consider as the process owner. I hope all of you would agree with me. And this process owner is not only responsible for the productivity, not only responsible for the quality, not only responsible for efficiency and effectiveness, that is the completeness. Okay, but this process owner, and whenever, like again and again, I'm using the term productivity and efficiency. And whenever we use this term, that is the productivity and efficiency, then always we concern about three parameters, Q, C, and T. Q stands for quality, C stands for cost, and T stands for time. Okay, and I hope all of you would agree with me. Out of these three parameters, quality having the maximum weightage. Okay, and now here there is a one more challenge with respect to any process owner, with respect to any business organization. With every new business cycle, organization want to enhance, improve their productivity. Okay, they want enhancement into their business process. Now, whenever they perform the changes, whenever they apply the new BPR, okay, then definitely some input cost is involved. Okay, but what the organization is looking for, they want to enhance, improve the quality, but parallel they want to cut down the input cost. Okay, because thumb rule is more and more quality, and then in the same proportion input cost would also increase. But here the challenge is, because through this measure or evaluate the productivity or efficiency of the process owner, that process owner should perform enhancement into the quality standard of the process, but parallel cut down the input cost. Okay, so quality having the maximum weightage, then comes the time, then comes the cost. Okay, and now in between time, because under the current scenario, each and every organization, they concern about customer satisfaction, they concern about quick delivery, whether it is a manufacturing, whether it is a service organization. I hope all of you are aware of. Now, RBI launch even the e-rupee. Okay, now e-rupee, I hope all of you would agree, is successor of UPI. UPI process model is totally different, and now in UPI, third-party service provider is involved into the process. But into the e-rupee, there is no involvement of the third-party service provider. Okay, and it is totally a different business model according to the RBI, as well as I hope all of you are aware of. Last month, under the leadership of Shakti Kanta Das and Narendra Modi, RBI launched in the country digital bank units. Okay, now whenever and wherever we are using this term, then ultimate objective is to enhance, improve the speed. And whenever we'll think about this, then default, we concern about IS plus IT. Please kindly just concentrate. Whenever we'll think about enhancement into the quality with respect to the business process. Okay, and whenever we'll think about enhancement with respect to the speed of the business transaction into the business process. Okay, then in simple terms, can we, I hope it would be easy for you from the examination point of view. Business objective is equal to IS plus IT. Kindly just concentrate how this terms coming into the picture. Ultimate objective is quality, cost, and time. Okay. IS plus IT implementation. Business objective. Organization does not want to dilute their business objective. Business objective is equal to IS plus IT implementation. So from auditor point of view, can we say that IS-IT is not a real business, but IS and IT is a value addition with respect to the real business. Real business is banking, real business is insurance, real business is cement manufacturing, real business is automobile manufacturing, real business is hotel industry, hospitality sector. And now into those businesses, now we are enabling IS and IT. So to enhance, improve the productivity, to enhance, improve the efficiency. Okay. And now whenever we'll think about this IS, please kindly just concentrate. Then we concern about only few things. Please kindly, there are many questions would come. Number one, we concern about DR. I'm writing in short, just considering the time. Okay. I will share if you want, then I will share the detailed document later on. DR stands for data recording. Okay. Now I hope all of you would agree with me. And this is the key term from the examination point of view. Concentrate onto the business, concentrate onto the business model, concentrate onto the business process, concentrate onto the data. Okay. If there is no business process, then there is no generation of data. I hope all of you would agree with me. And whenever the business process execute, it will generate the data. Okay. And each and every organization through IS, they concern about number one, DR, that is the data recording. Now from where this data is coming under the current scenario, and there are many questions would come. That's why intentionally I am writing for you people. There are two sources of data under the current scenario. I hope all of you would agree with me. Number one is U. U stands for user. Okay. Users are generating the data. And again, from the auditor point of view, all of you would agree with me that with respect to each and every business organization, broadly, there are two types of users. because as per my knowledge, as per my understanding, I never came across the third type of the user. If you people kindly just help me. Number one is I and number two is E. I hope all of you would agree with me. I stands for internal user. E stands for external user. Okay. And now, whenever we'll think about the privileges, whenever we'll think about the access right, then default privileges or access right with respect to any business organization of internal user would be much, much more than the privileges or access right of external user. So during the examination, kindly just concentrate onto the question. Which question is framed related to which business process, from where the data is coming, okay, and who is involved, whether the internal user is involved or whether the external user is involved. Okay, if both are involved, then whose weightage is more with respect to the another one? Then again, internal users are again further classified into different level. I hope all of you would agree with me. Kindly just concentrate. Number one, LLU, that is the low level user. Okay, low level users responsible only to generate the data with respect to any business organization. I hope all of you would agree with me. Even under the current scenario, external user means their number of questions would come. External user means vendor. Okay, because under the current scenario, I hope all of you are aware of and thoroughly aware of and agree with my this version that each and every business organization is a part of 4 business cycle. Number 1, DCM. Number 2, SCM. Number 3, LCM. Number 4, CRM. DCM stands for demand chain management. SCM stands for supply chain management. LCM stands for logistic chain management. And CRM stands for customer relationship management. And with respect to each and every business organization, there are n number of business associates. These business associates are vendor. These business associates are warehouse service provider. These business associates are point of sale. Okay. And now, whenever we'll think about the vendor, whenever we'll think about the warehouse service provider, all these are independent business unit. Okay. But if organization is a part of a supply chain management, and under the current scenario, each and every business organization is a part of a global supply chain management. That's why if crisis occurred in one of the organization, impact would come over the entire cycle. I hope all of you would agree with me, and the questions would come like this. And the same with the information system. Please kindly just. So vendor is external user. Okay. And now between the vendor and between the business organization, that may be a service organization or that may be a manufacturing unit. Okay. There is a B2B model. I hope all of you would agree with me. Okay. And now, similarly, if we'll consider the case of W, that is the warehouse service provider. Okay. Now, warehouse service provider is again an independent business organization, which is providing some services to the business organization. This business organization is again maybe a retail business organization, just like the Future Group, Big Basket, Big Bazaar. Okay. Just like Amazon. Okay. Nature of business of Amazon is e-retail. Okay. So Amazon daily basis purchasing the huge inventory. Flipkart is purchasing the huge inventory. Okay. And down the line to Flipkart, down the line to Pantaloon, down the line to n number of retail organization, whether it is a Reliance Digital, whether it is a Chroma, you name it. There are n number of vendors. Those vendors may be the manufacturing units, but according to the nature of the business organization, would consider as a retailer, consider as a vendor. Okay. Now, warehouse service provider, maximum organization in place of managing their own inventory in their own in-houses. They are taking the support through the third-party service provider. Third-party service provider, like for example, organization like Safe Express, organization like FedEx, organization like Gati Express, organization like VRL Logistics. Okay, I hope all of you. Okay, so vendor is a third-party service provider. Warehouse is again a third-party service provider. And again, between the vendor and between the business organization, there is a B2B model. Between the warehouse service provider and the business organization, again, there is a B2B model, but the process which execute between the vendor and between the business organization and the process which execute between the warehouse and between the business organization won't be identical. So the process owner who is responsible on behalf of business organization, who coordinate with the vendor, who coordinate with the warehouse, would be different. Okay, and this process owner, even we also known as this process owner, we also known as, from the auditor point of view, risk owner. Please kindly just concentrate, because we not only concern about here quality, we not only concern about the cost, we not only concern about the time, but under the current scenario, we concern about the security also. And please kindly just concentrate. Now, whenever we'll think about this security, then I hope all of you would agree with me, especially from the auditor point of view. Whenever we'll think about the security, then default auditor always concern about R. R stands for, that is risk. Okay, and I am saying there is no business organization anywhere in the world, whether it is Apple, okay, whether it is State Bank of India, whether it is a Adani Group, you name it, any business organization, although as per the expertise level of each and every business owner, as per the expertise level of each and every domain expert, as per expertise level of each and every subject matter expert, organization had taken n number of different precautionary steps, but then also minimum risk would always exist into the system. And ultimate role of any auditor during the time of audit, especially under the current scenario, I hope all of you would agree with me, not only to evaluate the productivity, efficiency, effectiveness, not only to evaluate that what about the revenue generation with respect to the financial aspect, but to evaluate the security aspect, because whenever the organization perform changes, usually the expansion into the business. So focus of the organization, focus of the business owner is to generate more and more revenue sources, to enhance, improve the volume of the business, to enhance, improve the customer traffic, to enhance, improve revenue, to enhance, improve the volume of revenue, to enhance, improve the volume of the profit. But they least concern about the risk, because the manner in which organization perform the expansion, in the same fashion, risk would also increase. And now whenever we'll think about the risk, especially with respect to any business organization, that default parallel will think about two more terms. I hope all of you would agree with me. And the number of questions would come. Number one is V and number two is T. Out of 200 questions, default, I am telling you, not only on that basis that whether I am responsible to design or develop the paper or anybody, because anybody means anybody want to design or develop the paper for auditor, especially for IAS auditor, and especially for auditor. And if they won't ask you the question related to risk, vulnerability, and threat, then I think it won't be justified from the auditor point of view. Now, I hope all of you would agree with me. Let me use one statement. Please kindly just concentrate, because many times many people are puzzled that which one would consider as a vulnerability, which one would consider as a threat, and which one would consider as a risk. Because until unless this concept is not clear, then you unable to take the right step to minimize or to overcome vulnerability, to overcome the threat, or to minimize the risk. Okay, and that solution is only one, that is the control. Okay, now vulnerability, I hope all of you would agree with me. Vulnerability always exists within the system. Please kindly just concentrate. And this is the key term from the examination point of view. Whenever the question would come, and out of 200 question, I am telling you, minimum 50-60 question related to vulnerability. And whenever we'll think about any type of vulnerability, vulnerability is always within the system, and vulnerability is nothing but vulnerability is a type of weakness within the system. Okay, and any organization means any organization having control to overcome their vulnerability. They don't have any control over outside factor, and this outside factor is nothing but this outside factor which like to exploit this vulnerability is known as THREAT, that is threat. Okay, and now let me use one statement. I hope all of you would agree with me. If there is no vulnerability, then there is no existence of threat, and the manner in which vulnerability percentage would increase with respect to any business organization, in the same manner, percentage of threat would also increase. Now, what I mentioned, under the current scenario, each and every business organization belongs to supply chain management. Now, why organizations implemented the supply chain management? Even without supply chain management, they were working before couple of years. But under the current scenario, each and every organization belongs to supply chain management, and supply chain management is basically a successor of ERP. If there is no ERP, then there is no existence of supply chain management. And I hope all of you would agree with me. ERP is again nothing. Please kindly just correlate the things, how the questions would frame. Until unless there is no ERP implementation in any business organization, then there is no implementation of supply chain management. Supply chain management we always implement after the implementation of ERP. Okay, and under the current scenario, out of 100%, not only globally, even within our country, 90 to 95% business organizations are enabled with ERP. I hope all of you would agree with me. Okay, and market leader is SAP. Number 2 is Oracle e-business, Oracle Finance. Okay, number 3rd is Microsoft Dynamics. Number 4th is JD Edward. Number 5th, Customize. Okay, so whether it is e-filing system, whether it is a Finacle, which is a type of CBS system, whether it is FlexCube, which is a type of CBS system, okay, whether it is a GST, I am saying all these are nothing but type of ERP. Okay, and now let me use one more statement. I hope you people are sitting with the notebook, because there are many things I'm unable to write because we are not into the detailed session. It is communicated to me that just to share the key points. Okay, maybe if suppose we'll get the opportunity before examination, then maybe you and me, we can interact for a couple of days with respect to the refresher batch. Now here, I am saying ERP is nothing, but ERP is a type of IES. Now here one more question would come. Okay, let me use one statement. I hope all of you would agree with me. I am saying every information system is not a type of ERP, but every ERP is a type of information system. And please kindly concentrate the terms, those which I used just now. Okay, standard information system is data oriented, ERP is process oriented. Okay, and whenever we want to implement a standard information system into any business organization, then we least concern about the structuring of the organization. Okay, whether the organization is properly structured or not, whether the proper workflow management is defined or not, okay, whether proper job roles, whether there is a segregation of duties defined or not. But whenever we'll think about implementation of ERP, then default will think about proper workflow management with respect to any business organization. Default will think about that organization should be thoroughly well structured. Default we think about that n number of internal users, those which are working within the organization with respect to different business unit, their proper job roles are defined, okay, which is technically from the auditor point of view known as segregation of duties, okay. And segregation of duties is nothing but this is basically a one type of a administrative control to overcome or to mitigate the impact of risk, because risk is nothing. Mathematically, there is a formula to compute the risk. I hope all of you would agree with me. That is A into, please kindly just concentrate, A into V into T into I. Okay, there are many questions would come. And from auditor point of view, all this term, because out of 200 question, more than 150 question only related to this terms. You just go through whether the question is related to the database, whether the question is related to the network, whether the question is related to the role of the DBA, whether the question is the role of NA, whether the question is role of SA. Just have a look, kindly just concentrate. A stands for asset. Asset. Okay. Now, according to the nature of the business organization, according to the type of the business organization, according to the size of the business organization, with respect to each and every business organization, there are some assets exist. Okay. Now, something which is valuable, something which is highly valuable for one business organization, it is not necessary the same would be considered as the valuable asset or highly valuable asset for another business organization. Maybe the nature of the business organization would be quite similar. Like, for example, State Bank of India is a banking organization. Okay. ICICI Bank is a banking organization. Okay. And there is a cooperative bank, which is again a banking organization. It is not necessary that a particular entity which a cooperative bank consider highly valuable asset, same would be considered by State Bank of India has highly valuable asset. So you have to focus onto this key term, that what about the organization? Okay. And then in which context the question would be framed. Now, kindly just back to here. Now, a moment before I use the term business process, and I am saying business process is one of the most valuable asset for any business organization. Then business model. Okay, because the success of any business, especially under the current scenario, okay, like State Bank of India is a banking organization, Union Bank is a banking organization, UCO Bank is a banking organization, and all are the public sector organization. Okay, but productivity of State Bank of India is not equal to the productivity of Union Bank. Productivity of Union Bank is not equal to the productivity of another public sector bank, that may be Indian Bank. Okay. And now, after the merging with respect to State Bank of India, with respect to PNB, I hope all of you would agree with me, especially from auditor point of view. Whatever the business model the State Bank of India was using before merger, and whatever the business model State Bank of India is using today, whatever the business model used by PNB, whatever the business model used by Indian Bank, before, whatever the business model used by Union Bank, okay, it's totally changed. And can we say that from auditor point of view, there are a number of questions that business model is a valuable asset for any business organization. Okay. And now whenever the organization perform changes into the business model, so basically this is the rearrangement of business process, okay, which is a one type of a BPR, okay, rearrangement of the business process. And now whenever the organization perform rearrangement into the business process, then default, they like to overcome whatever the vulnerability exists into the previous version and try to overcome into the new version. Okay, whatever the threats associated with respect to the business model, with respect to the previous version, they like to overcome. Okay, and I stands, so V stands for vulnerability, T stands for threat. Okay, and I stands for impact. Okay, like whenever any risk occurred with respect to any business organization, and when that risk evolved, okay, then default, there would be some impact over the business organization. That impact may be a financial loss. That impact would be the loss of the goodwill of that business organization. Like at this moment, I hope all of you are aware of, although it is not giving the much weightage due to the election and all the things, but there is a serious incident happened in the country with respect to the most premium business organization with respect to the health sector, that is AIMS. I hope all of you are aware of. Okay, there is a huge fraud, there is a huge data breach, data stolen, scam happened. Okay, although people are not concentrating, but it is a serious issue with respect to the country, and somewhere the brand value of the organization would also affected, because people are not concentrating only the scam, people are not only concentrating onto the fraud, people are correlating with the brand value of the business organization, and somewhere impact would come over the brand value also. And there are many questions would come like this, especially under the current scenario. Okay, now after business model, after business process, the second most valuable, the third most valuable asset for any business organization, especially under the current scenario, is the data. Okay, now data, business process is a valuable asset, business model is a valuable asset, but now when organization generating the data, now this data is a valuable asset, because what I mentioned at the beginning, that data is the lifeline of the business organization. And using this data, what we can do, we can evaluate the real productivity. And now here another thing, now from where this data is coming, now organization is not only concerned about just to capture the data, organization not only just concerned about just to perform the recording of the data, organization not only concerned about just to gather the data, organization not only concerned about just the data collection. Please kindly concentrate, I intentionally use all this term because there are many questions would come, because somewhere we are performing the data gathering, somewhere we are performing the data capturing, somewhere we are performing the data collection. Organization concerned about that this data should be quality oriented, because during the input phase, if this data would be the quality oriented, then later on when the process would apply over this data, over this recorded data, then default, whatever the output would be generated in the form of the report, then default we can say that those reports would be quality oriented. Please kindly just concentrate. So here, data recording is one of the most important process. Okay, and now data recording through the user, then along with the vendor, along with the warehouse, there is another external user, that is POS. POS stands for point of sale, and I hope all of you would agree with me. Like at this moment, this session organized by DAP, hosted by Nagpur branch. Okay, now under the umbrella of Institute of Chartered Accountant of India, there are many branches. Okay, so parent body is the Institute of Chartered Accountant of India, and each and every branch from where each and every associated member, from where each and every associated student, because with respect to institute, there are only two major stakeholders, two major customer also, from where the institute even generating the revenue. I hope all of you would aware of thoroughly the business model of the institute. One is member, another is a student. Okay, now student and member always perform transaction with the branch. Okay, and on behalf of a student, on behalf of the member, branches perform transaction with the regional branch. Regional branches perform, or even the branch perform directly transaction with the head office. Okay, so can we say that between the branch and between the head office, between the branch and between the regional branch, there is a B2B model? But the process which execute between a particular branch and between a particular regional branch, that may be WIRC, that may be CIRC, that may be EIRC, that may be NIRC, it's totally different. Okay, and whatever the process execute between the regional branch and between the head office, this is again B2B, and this process is again different. So whatever the data generated, okay, now quality of this data is depend on to the quality of the business process. Please kindly just concentrate. And there are different process owner, there are different risk owner who is responsible for the quality of this data. Please kindly just concentrate. So point of sale, along with the point of sale, customer is again one of the external user. Again, external user, from where organizations are performing the recording of the data. Now, under the current scenario, there is hardly any business organization, I hope all of you would agree with me, which is not equipped with CCTV, which is not equipped with biometric devices. Okay, and even in many of the POS, you and me, we perform transaction via vending machines. Okay, like ATM machine. Okay, cash deposit machine. Okay, check deposit machine, which is technically is known as instrument. Okay, earlier we used to perform this process. Earlier we used to perform this transaction with the banker, between the customer and the banker. But now the customer is performing the transaction with the machine according to each and every banking organization. Okay, customer now got the flexibility 24/7, 365 days. Customer can perform any type of the basic banking transaction. So for data recording purpose, now along with the user, under the current scenario, we are using the machines, we are using the devices. Okay, now risk associated with respect to the user level, when organizations are capturing or recording the data through the user, and when organizations are recording the data through machines or devices. Okay, risk associated with respect to the CCTV. Although there are many questions would come, kindly just concentrate. CCTV is a one type of a detective control. I hope all of you would agree with me. Biometric device is a one type of a preventive control. I hope all of you would agree with me. Please kindly concentrate. These are the repeated questions. CCTV is in the form of hardware. So from auditor point of view, especially from the IS auditor point of view, we can say that CCTV is a type of physical control, but it is a detective control. Okay, biometric device, okay, is physical and logical both, because biometric devices are available in the form of hardware. Okay, but your thumb impression and my thumb impression, okay, your Irish impression and my Irish impression, because under the current scenario, we are considering that biometric is the most secure technology, is one of the most effective control to mitigate the risk. Okay. And now biometric devices basically perform are dual type of a control, physical and logical both. But I am saying CCTV and biometric devices, organizations are not using only for the control purpose. CCTV and biometric devices, organizations are utilizing for capturing the data also. There is hardly any business organization which is now involved, even at the small level, for attendance recording system daily basis with respect to their internal user, especially the employee, via separate system or the manual system. They are using the biometric device. So can we say that biometric devices and CCTV are the data recording, data capturing devices? Okay, but now here there is one more. Now risk, now the vulnerability, now the threat associated with respect to CCTV, threat vulnerability associated with respect to biometric, threat vulnerability risk associated with respect to the ATM machine, threat vulnerability risk associated with respect to cash deposit machine, with respect to check deposit machine, with respect to passbook update machine. All are the separate machine, all are the separate devices, would vary. Okay, and this is the job of the auditor, that auditor has to pay attention. And during the examination also, you have to pay attention. Question is related to user, or question is related to the device, or question is related to the machine. Then again, which type of machine, and now which type of the data is capturing through this. Now here there is one more thing. Now each and every organization is capturing the data. Okay, and now we concern about, let me just correlate. Now whenever we'll think about the risk, then default, the number of questions would come from module 1 to module 6. Because under the current scenario, whether we are doing the stock audit, whether we are doing the internal audit, whether we are doing the IS audit, although IS audit is again a one type of internal audit, whether we are doing a concrete audit, all audits are going on now risk-based audit. And default, we consider that chartered accountant and auditor is the only person who having very good understanding, okay, who having very good knowledge about the risk assessment. And now whenever we'll think about the risk, then default will think about the risk management. And now there are number of steps under this risk management. Number 1, RI. There are many questions would come. RI stands for risk identification. That first of all, what we have to do whenever we're going to evaluate the risk, then first of all, we have to identify worth of the asset with respect to the business organization. Okay, like one asset, what I mentioned is the business model, another is business process, another is data. And now, suppose this data, when this data is converted, when this data is converted into database, so now data would be more valuable or database would be more valuable? Okay, then default from the auditor point of view, we can say that database would be more valuable asset for any business organization. And now from during the IS audit, what we have to do? We have to evaluate the risk involved with respect to the data, risk associated with respect to the data, and risk associated with respect to the database. Okay, and now whenever we'll think about the database, then default, I hope all of you would agree with me, database is nothing but this is basically the second level process, because this first process, data recording, okay, this data recording which we perform using user or machine or the device. Okay, this is logically a one type of information system, or which again number of question would come. This is known as TPS system. This is a one type of information system which is known as the TPS system, that is transaction processing system. Okay, but initially when organization performed the data recording, I hope all of you would agree with me. Initially when organization performed the data recording, at that time that data won't be in the organized form. So now this is a fundamental challenge, and especially under the current scenario, when each and every business organization is a part of a global supply chain management. Organizations are not working under the homogeneous environment. Organizations are working under the heterogeneous environment. There are n number of business verticals, okay, and organizations are performing transaction through multiple locations. So data organizations are capturing, recording through multiple sources, okay, and now data again through the device or the machines. So now what about here? Again, the question is, this data is coming in the variety of form. Okay, this data is coming in the logical form. This data is coming in the arithmetical form. This data is coming in the textual form. This data is coming in the form of image. This data is coming in the form of audio. This data is coming in the form of the video. Okay, so variety of form the data is coming, and now this become a big challenge for any business organization, because initially whenever any business process execute, initially whenever any organization generate the data, so at that time no organization was aware of that which data is a valuable data or which data is not valuable, or which data is useful, which data is not useful, which data is worthful, which data. So at that time, each and every organization want to procure each and every piece of data. Now to procure the data, to capture the data, organization concern about data storage. Organization concern about data storage. Please kindly just concentrate how the things would come, how the questions would frame into the examination. Although time won't allow, please. Data storage. Organization generating the data, and now organization want to store the data. Okay, and after the data storage, organization want to organize this data, and this data organization is known as database. But before preparing the database, first of all, organization want to store the data. And whenever we'll think about the data storage, especially under the current scenario, now under the current scenario, what I mentioned, that organizations are working not under the homogeneous environment. Organizations are working under the heterogeneous environment. Heterogeneous means organization like LIC is not offering only insurance services. Along with the insurance services, LIC is offering housing loan, home loan also under the business vertical HFL. Okay, LIC is now partially a banking organization, because LIC having the 56% shareholding of IDBI Bank. Okay, similarly, whether it is a Adani, whether it is a Tata, whether it is a Reliance, you name it. Okay, each and every business organization is involved into the multiple business. Okay, and each and every business owner concerned about the total productivity, and in total productivity there is a contribution of each and every business vertical. Okay, and then quality standard of one business vertical affect the total quality standard, which is known as TQM with respect to the business organization. Now what about here? Huge volume of data is coming. Okay, this data in variety of form through the different devices, through different user, external, internal. So now organization under the current scenario using the two type of container to store this data. Please kindly just concentrate. Number one container is a physical server. Physical server. Okay. And second one, organizations are now using the cloud storage or the cloud server. Now, whenever we'll think about the cloud storage or the cloud server, then cloud storage or cloud server, usually the services provided by the third-party service provider. I hope all of you would agree with me. Whether it is AWS, whether it is Azure, whether it is IBM Cloud, whether it is Google Cloud, whether it is Oracle Cloud. Now there are many, but these are the leading service provider. So with respect to State Bank of India, if State Bank of India, with respect to some of its business process, with respect to some volume of the data, if suppose State Bank of India enabled the cloud, okay, and State Bank of India is availing the services through Amazon Web Services, State Bank of India is availing the services through Microsoft Azure, State Bank of India is availing the services through Google Cloud. So technically, Google is not responsible for the productivity of the business process. For that business process owner is State Bank of India. Okay, now whatever the data they are generating, okay, they want to store. And the main attraction of the cloud storage is what I mentioned at the beginning: quality, cost, and time. Okay, now each and every business organization, okay, with every new business cycle, they are doing the expansion of their business. Okay, and whenever they are doing the expansion, then default more and more business process would come into the action. When more and more business process, more and more volume of the data. Okay, when more and more volume of the data, the fundamental problem, their physical server won't be sufficient, okay, won't be competent to procure each and every piece of data. And after certain time, after certain level, maybe organizations having multiple server, like at this moment, I hope all of you are able to see in my hand, I am holding the two devices. For time being, just assume that with respect to my organization, suppose this is the database server, okay, and this is a physical in hardware form, okay. And now suppose whatever the data my organization is generating, each and every piece of data I'm keeping this, okay. Now when my organization decided to configure, decided to install, decided to deploy this server, at that time, the manner in my organization was doing the business, and as per the capacity of my organization to invest into the IS and IT infrastructure, as per the best configuration available in the market with the best deal. Suppose organization deploy the best configuration server. So this device having limited, maybe suppose this device having the hard disk of 100 terabyte for time being, but 100 terabyte is again a limited capacity, finite capacity. Once data reach to that level, close to the 100 terabyte, then default this device, this machine would give the signal to the internal user that now this machine, this device is not competent, is not capable to accommodate any piece of data. Then default organization must to go for the second server, okay. And when organization deploy the second server, extra input cost would be involved, okay. Now organization like State Bank of India, organization like ICICI Bank, organization like Reliance, organization like Tata, okay, those which are doing huge volume of the business, so default huge volume of the data they are generating, okay. When huge volume of the data they are generating, So now this data is no more the data. This data is now converted into the big data. And whenever we'll think about this big data, okay, then this big data is equal to basically, big data is equal to structured data. Please kindly just concentrate. Time won't allow, that's why. Structured data, data which is in the tabular form. Data which is in the tabular form, that form of data is known as structured data. Like data with respect to the customer would be recorded into a particular table. Data with respect to a product, data with respect to a service would be recorded into the table. Data with respect to the vendor would be recorded into a particular table. Okay. And now whenever we'll think about the database, especially traditional database, using Oracle, using MySQL, using SQL Server, okay, using IBM DB2, even ERP also, because ERP is what I mentioned, ERP is a type of information system, and I'm saying ERP is a type of database, and the main attraction of ERP is integration of a number of different business processes, and ERP always work on to one principle known as JIT, just in time. And main attraction or the punchline of ERP is right information, right user at the right time. And in ERP, in place of using the distributed database, we use the centralized database. Okay, each and every piece of data we keep into the centralized storage, into the centralized server. Okay, now this centralized server is a physical machine, which again having the finite capacity, and this is again in the tabular form. Okay, so structured data which is in the tabular form plus please kindly just concentrate, structured data, now semi-structured data. Semi-structured data, I hope all of you, especially from chartered accountant point of view, not only from the auditor, all of you are involved into the e-filing process. All of you are thoroughly aware of e-filing process. All of you are thoroughly aware of GST process. Okay, and daily basis, whenever the final reports you upload with respect to Central Board of Direct Taxes under the umbrella of Ministry of Finance, as well as Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Custom, those which are the governing body. Okay, one with respect to indirect tax, another with respect to the direct taxation. Okay, then final reports always we upload in the form of JSON or in the form of XML. So the data which is in the form of JSON, data which is in the form of XML, data which is in the form of HTML, data which is in the form of PDF, because nowadays, whenever we go for audit of any business organization, even during the return filing also, many times client, even individual client also, not even the corporate, they share their data in the form of the PDF file. Okay, they share their data in the form of CSV. Okay, that is comma separated value. So the data is coming now into the variety of form, and the volume of the data which is coming in this form with respect to the tabular form would be much more than, and it would be a challenge. You just see how the big data. So the big data is combination of structured data which is in the tabular form plus semi-structured data which is in the form of JSON, XML, HTML, PDF. Along with this data which is coming under the huge volume 24/7, 365 days, which is known as unstructured data. Unstructured data, data which is coming through the social media, data which is coming through CCTV, data which is coming through PDF file, this data which is either in the form of image, this data which is either in the form of audio, this data which is either in the form of video, okay, which is basically in the graphical form, unstructured. And I hope all of you would agree with me, especially from auditor point of view. Now, according to the apex body with respect to the compliance, Supreme Court, evidence with respect to the WhatsApp, evidence with respect to Instagram, evidence with respect to any social media post would be considered as the relevant evidence. So no organization means no organization can able to deny any piece of data which is coming through any of the source and they want to procure. So big data is nothing. Big data is basically a technique. Okay. And big data is a combination of three types of data: structured data, semi-structured data, and unstructured data. As well as one more thing, because there are a number of questions would come. This is under the emerging technology. I touch that. I already integrated all the three modules. Big data, whenever we use, then with respect to the big data, we always use somewhere 3V, somewhere we use 4V. This V stands for number one, velocity. Okay, like what I mentioned, organizations are working 24/7, 365 days. Organizations are working under the heterogeneous environment and under the current scenario. I hope all of you would agree with me. Most of the business organizations are working under the hybrid mode. Hybrid means they are working under the offline mode as well as online mode. 70% they are, 70 to 80% most of the business organization, whether it is a Deloitte, whether it is a PwC, whether it is a KPMG, whether it is a Goldman, you name it, whether it is BCG, whether it is E&Y, all are working, even the banking are working under the hybrid mode. Okay. So 24/7, huge velocity, the data is coming, as well as in a number of different variety, as well as in huge volume. So volume, variety, velocity, and then veracity. Okay, each and every, then variety having the different versions also, Okay, this is known as veracity. So this is known as the 4V. So big data, now to accommodate this big data, this physical server is not capable. Physical server, the main attraction of physical server in-house. If in-house, so this is totally within the control of the business organization. So minimum risk. Okay. Another fundamental vulnerability, whenever organization think about to upgrade or go for the new physical server, then heavy input cost would be involved, and heavy input cost is basically a one type of a vulnerability because this is a weakness. Okay. But now when organization think about the solution, okay, and this solution is in the form of the cloud storage. Cloud, whenever we'll think about, then default will think about CSP, that is the cloud service provider, which is a third party. Although the main attraction of the cloud service provider, infinite capacity. Okay, an organization has to pay only for whatever the services they are availing. Okay, that's why whenever we'll think about the cloud computing, then default, I hope all of you are aware of, there are three types of the service models. With cloud computing, there are two things over which number of questions would come from your examination point of view. And this is related to the storage. Number one is service model. Okay. With respect to the cloud computing, there are three service models we are using. Number one, IaaS, number two, PaaS, and number third, SaaS. And at this moment, maximum implementations are going on with respect to SaaS, that is software as a service. Okay. And then comes second as a platform as a service, and number third is infrastructure as a service. And the main attraction, I hope all of you heard about, the main attraction whenever any organization think about to go for the cloud, the main attraction, infinite storage capacity. At minimum cost, Means organization don't need to create infrastructure. They don't need to purchase. This infrastructure belongs to the third party. They are just availing the services to keep their data, and their data would be managed by the third party service provider. And what I mentioned, data is lifeline. So data is a most valuable asset. So risk, vulnerability, and percentage of threat involved with respect to the cloud service provider with respect to the physical storage would be maximum. There are many questions would come, especially from IAS auditor point of view. Kindly just concentrate. Okay. Now, risk is maximum. The only advantage, minimum cost. Okay. An organization don't need to create their own infrastructure, but maximum, because in any business process, more and more involvement of the third party service provider, then in the same proportion, the percentage of risk would increase. Okay, this is what. And now, with respect to the cloud computing, there is one more thing over which number of questions. We can discuss many things, but let me just cut down. Deployment model. There are 3 deployment model. Okay, and the number of questions, and there are different level of risk would be involved. Number 1, cloud is available in private cloud. Okay, like Amazon Web Services. Okay, Amazon Web Services or Azure, or you think about any cloud service provider. Maximum cloud service provider to the general people, they are offering free of cost. And whenever anybody is offering, because those cloud service provider, they don't have any interest to store their data, but they want to utilize your data. Okay, how this? Just I'll explain you in a short while. Now, what about here? This cloud is again available, storage is again available in different form. Time won't allow, let me just, number 1, private cloud, number 2, hybrid cloud, and number 3 is a public cloud. Okay, now vulnerability associated with respect to private cloud, vulnerability associated with respect to hybrid cloud, vulnerability associated with respect to public cloud won't be same. Okay, now cost wise, public cloud is most economical, but maximum risk, maximum threats, maximum vulnerability. Please kindly concentrate. There are many questions would come. Okay, and even the question would come, the simplest question. Please arrange this 3 in a sequentially in the ascending or descending order according to risk or cost wise. So minimum risk. Now from IAS auditor point of view, what we have to do? We have not to evaluate, but we have to advise also. Now, if we want to advise to any client, we want to advise to any business organization prepared to go for the cloud. Okay, but which cloud we always advise? Public cloud, hybrid cloud, or private cloud? Definitely the private cloud. With private cloud, maximum cost is involved. Okay, but minimum risk. After the private cloud, number 2 is hybrid, which is a combination of public and private. Okay, and then comes the public. Somewhere you people heard about the 4th one, although standard there are 3, but somewhere I know. That's why, although you people are unable to talk, but definitely this question is coming into the mind of some people. That is the community cloud. Community cloud is nothing. Community cloud is again a one type of a public cloud. Like there is a dedicated cloud with respect to the banking sector. There is a dedicated cloud with respect to the insurance sector, just like a block. So it is a one type of a public standard. There are 3. Okay. Then now here, with respect to the data, there is one more thing, most important. Broadly, data is in 2 forms. There are number of questions would come over this. There are 2 types of data. One is standard data. I'm writing in short, please kindly. Standard data, and second one is critical. And this critical data we also known as sensitive data. Okay, like if suppose I'll ask you, what is your name? This is a data, but this is a standard data. If I'll ask you, what is your DOB? This is a data, but I am saying DOB is critical with respect to the name of the person. Now in place of DOB, if I'll ask you, what is your Aadhaar number? Although Aadhaar number is again a data, but sensitivity of Aadhaar data would be much more than the sensitivity of DOB. Then if I'll ask you, what is your PAN number? Then I'll ask you, what is your bank account number? Okay, so now here you have to pay attention during the examination also. There are many questions would come, especially from the IAS auditor point of view. Every data is not a data. Which data would come under the category of standard data? Which data would come under the category of critical data? And then which data would come under the category of highly critical data? Then now the question would come, because definitely number of questions would come. Now, when organization generating the data, okay, now they have to decide where they want to keep the data, where they want to store the data. Now, under the current scenario, I hope all of you would agree with me. It is advisable also that all the organizations implemented, business organizations migrated to the cloud environment, even they implemented the cloud storage. But from IAS auditor point of view, it is always advisable that parallel to the cloud storage, organization must use the physical storage. Okay, now here the fundamental problem, fundamental challenge, which many of the business owners are facing, and advantage goes to the fraudster, advantage goes to the hacker if they are not properly trained that which data they keep where, because risk associated with respect to the standard data, vulnerability, risk associated with respect to the critical data, risk associated with respect to highly critical data would vary. So it is always advisable that highly critical data, even the critical data, organization always keep within their physical storage, like from any business organization point of view. I hope all of you would agree with me. Financial data, we always consider highly sensitive data, we consider highly critical data. Then after the financial data, employee data, vendor data is again a critical data, because no organization want to lose their customer. No organization want that any of their rival, any of their business competitor, or any hacker breach the security with respect to their customer data, with respect to their employee data, with respect to their vendor data, because all these are the, but which one is highly sensitive? Please kindly just concentrate here. So although data is a valuable asset, but again, during the risk identification, auditor has to perform thoroughly this study. After the risk identification comes risk assessment. Risk assessment we also known as risk analysis. Okay, and then after the risk assessment, after the risk analysis come respond to the risk. Respond to the risk, again there are number of questions would come. Okay, either the organization can able to accept the risk, or organization like to avoid the risk, or organization like to transfer the risk. Okay, or organization like to mitigate the risk. Please just concentrate here. There are many questions, and depend on to the type of asset, depend on to the type of risk assessment, depend on to the type of the capacity of the business organization. Now here I use the term capacity. It means what? there are different type of risk, and there are many questions would come over this. Okay, like whenever we'll think about the types of risk, then broadly, number one, like what I mentioned at the beginning, according to the knowledge level, according to the level of intelligence, according to the level of awareness of any business organization. Suppose organization implemented effective preventive control, because it is always advisable from the auditor point of view that if organization implemented effective preventive control, then organization least concerned about the corrective control, because input cost involved in implementing the preventive control would be much lesser than the cost involved with respect to the corrective control. And even whenever any incident happened, okay, and then organization think about to overcome the impact of that, go for the corrective control. No corrective control 100% able to provide the best solution. Okay, that's why all organization always concerned about implementation of effective preventive control. Okay, but what about here? Here at the beginning, organization always concerned about the type of risk. Like number one is known as the natural risk. Natural risk, which is also known as inherent risk. Okay, like whenever organization purchase, suppose any database server, okay, which is in the form of hardware, which is basically a machine. Okay, organization hire any new employee. Okay, organization associated with any new vendor. Okay, now according to organization, as per their level of awareness, as per their level of intellectual, they purchase the best hardware, they purchase the best software. Okay, they hire the best employee. Okay, they thoroughly perform the selection process, they thoroughly check the technical skill, but then also minimum risk would always exist. So before implementing any control, whatever the risk associated, inbuilt, that risk is known as either with respect to device, either with respect to any machine, or with respect to any user, whether it is internal or external, that risk is known as inherent risk or a natural risk. And now, after implementation of control, after implementation of best control, again, as per the level of intelligence of the business organization, some risk default would remain into the system. Okay, and that risk is known as residual risk. Okay, and this is a repeated question. Okay, so if question would come, there are three terms would be there in the question: inherent risk, residual risk, and control. How to arrange this in the form of the equation? Okay, then residual risk is equal to inherent risk or a natural risk minus control, or control is equal to inherent risk or a natural risk minus residual risk. Question would ask in any manner because examination pattern is MCQ. Okay, then another risk, that is risk appetite. Now risk appetite again vary from organization to organization, like the type of fraud which happened with respect to AIIMS. Okay, now risk appetite of AIIMS Delhi is not equal to risk appetite of any small nursing home. I hope all of you would agree with me. Similarly, with respect to the banking organization, similarly with respect to any business organization. Okay, so risk appetite always vary from organization to organization. Similarly, there is one more term, that is risk tolerance. Up to what level organization can able to digest. Like for example, if suppose we'll consider the case of the stock market, we'll consider some key performance indicator with respect to any business organization. If suppose organizations are not getting the healthy output, okay, they are lagging, okay, with respect to their target. So up to what level organization can able to bear? Like Air India is a very good example. Up to some level, Ministry of Aviation tolerate, but when they unable to, then they decided to sell off, which is known as disinvestment. And now the same process they are doing with respect to n number of other business unit under the umbrella of Government of India, whether it is a Shipping Corporation of India, whether it is a Container Corporation of India, okay, even there are many, whether it is a BPCL, there are many business organizations are lined up, okay, with respect to which disinvestment, because somewhere organization now unable to bear their risk. So risk tolerance, risk, and you have to pay attention because this looks quite similar, risk appetite and risk tolerance, but there is a difference between these two. Okay, now solution to this is always one, that is a control. And whenever we'll think about this solution, control, then under the current scenario, I hope all of you would agree with me, especially from the auditor point of view, that broadly there are three types of controls we deal with. Number one, that is environmental. Okay, like at this moment, especially if you just review last 1 year globally, then many parts of the world, okay, whether Australia, whether United States, whether Brazil, affected, even Spain in Europe, many parts of the Europe also affected due to wildfire. Okay, so whether it is a wildfire, whether it is a tsunami, country like Indonesia, whether it is an earthquake, whether it is a volcano, whether it is a tornado, all this are the natural calamity. Okay, and you and me or no business organization having any control over this, but to take the precautions, because this is a natural, like Japan, if we'll consider the geographically the place where Japan is located, then default after every certain interval, after regular interval, definitely there is a high probability. That is a risk, because risk always we consider as a probability, likelihood. Okay, there is a probability of occurrence of earthquake, and whenever the earthquake happen, especially into the coastal countries, okay, into the island countries, whether it is Indonesia, then default there is a high probability of tsunami also. Then again there is a huge impact. So organization want to take the precautionary step in the form of environmental control. Okay, then comes the external control, and all these controls are either in the form of physical or logical. Please kindly just concern, and you have to pay attention whether it is environmental, whether it is external, and then the third one is internal. And like IS audit is a type of internal audit. So mostly, although we deals with internal control, and in internal control there is nothing, three terms: PDC, preventive, detective, and corrective. Okay, detective always remain action. And now here the most important part with respect to the control, and I hope all of you would agree with me, especially from the auditor point of view, there is no existence of any control without policy. Okay, without policy, whenever we perform the control assessment, then default strength of the control we always evaluate based on the type of the policy which we define with respect to the control. Suppose organization purchase the best, organization deploy the best CCTV, deploy the best security system, but they won't define any policy. So without policy, there is no mean, no existence of any control. And whenever we perform the control assessment, especially from the auditor point of view, and this is a challenging task, because according to the type of asset, according to the type of the asset, according to the value of the asset, according to the worth of the asset, organization decide that which control, which policy they should implement. And this is again advisable again from the IAS auditor point of view, not only from the IAS auditor, even from any audit, even from any auditor point of view, that organization on regular basis, this is a repeated question from examination point of view, regular basis, regular interval, periodically review their control and policy. And whenever they perform changes, whenever they perform minute changes into their business structuring, in their business model, in their business model, they must perform changes into, they must upgrade their control, they must upgrade their policy. Okay. And now one term is policy, another is guidelines. Okay. Another is a standard, another is policy, another is procedure. And for all this, who is responsible? Who is responsible? Governing body. Governing body is responsible to create the policy. Governing body is responsible to create the standards. Governing body is responsible to define the guidelines. Governing body is responsible to create the procedure, would be implemented by the management body. That's why governing body is always responsible, direction, monitoring, and controlling. That's why now whenever we'll think about this database, whenever we'll think about the data storage, then who is the key person here? Who is the key person? And whenever think about the key person or the process owner with respect to the database, with respect to the data storage, because database is the backbone, data is the most valuable asset, then default will think about DBA. Default will think about DA. Okay. Now, DBA is responsible any issue related to the database, where to keep which data, where to keep which data. Please kindly concentrate. Okay. Now, where to store data of customer into which server, where to store data of the vendor, where to store data of different type of products and services. Okay. So which data? Then again, there are two type of data, historical data and the current data. Okay. And I hope all of you heard about that, aware of that, along with this physical server, along with this cloud server, there is a one more type of a storage unit we use. Okay. Over which number of questions would come. Okay. And that storage unit is playing a key role, especially with respect to the big data analytics, with respect to the data analytics, which is known as data warehouse. Okay. Now data warehouse usually is in the form of the physical storage. Okay. Usually it is in-house. In somewhere you will find this is the third party, which is not advisable. Okay. And whenever we'll think about the data warehouse maintain historical data, because with respect to any business organization, there are two types of the data, current data and historical data. And now all of you would agree with me, volume of historical data would be much more than the volume of the current data. Now please kindly just concentrate. This historical data we also known as this historical data, which is already recorded, which organization already generated. Okay. Now volume of this data is huge. Okay. And this data is usually in the form of static data. Static. Okay. Means we are unable to perform changes, the manner in which I'm talking about the master data. Okay. Then the current data we also known as the dynamic data. Current data we also known as real-time data. And now the question would come into the examination. And this is the attraction of ERP, because ERPs, especially SAP. I hope you people are aware of, those of you are thorough with SAP, that SAP always we write SAP R3. R stands for real-time data. Okay. Now, risk associated with dynamic data and risk associated with respect to the static data won't be the same. Okay. Now, risk associated with respect to this data warehouse, which manage historical data, and risk associated with respect to the operational database server, and risk associated with respect to the database which manage your operational or the current data would vary. And who is responsible to manage all this? DBA. And DBA is basically the risk owner. If there is any issue related to the database, then who is the key person? And out of 200, default, I'm telling you blindly, minimum 30 to 40%, or maybe 30 to 40, or maybe 50 question you will find related to the database. And wherever you will find either question you will find related to the DBA, or you will find the question related to the DA. Where to keep which data? Okay, as well as there are n number of users, internal and external. Okay, each and every user is working at the different level. Some users are working at the low level, some users are working at the middle level, some users are working at the top level. Okay, now access right of low level user, okay, who is involved with the TPS system. Access right of the middle level user, who is basically accessing MIS system, who is responsible to perform the data analysis. Okay, output of the database is input for the data analysis. Okay, so role of the middle level user is more sensitive than the role of the low level user. Okay, then top level user, who is basically using the EIS system, or in between decision support system or expert system. Okay, EIS, that is executive information system. Expert system, if along with this executive information system we implemented artificial intelligence, means robotic process automation. Okay, then system automatically helping the top level to take the right decision at the right time. Okay, now the role of the people at the top level would be much more sensitive, because output of the middle level user, and output of the middle level users are business reports. Business reports are either in the form of the tabular, or usually business reports are in the form of charts, in the form of the graph, which is known as data visualization, which is a input source for the top level management. Okay, now who will decide the access right? Who will decide the privileges with respect to internal user, with respect to external user? Who will decide where to keep which data? Who will decide whenever the organization planning to migrate from one database server to another? Even if suppose organization planning to migrate from one storage to another storage, to configure parallel to one storage, another storage for backup purpose, all this different type of actions, means capacity with respect to the database, user level access right, performance of the database. Okay, means whether we are getting the response quickly or slow, all this would be handled by DBA. So DBA is the key person, but DBA is not working at the governance level. DBA is responsible to implement the control. DBA is responsible to implement the policy, but those controls and policies would be defined at the governance level. So DBA coordinate with whom? DBA reporting to CIO, Chief Information Officer. Chief Information Officer internally coordinate with CEO, Chief Executive Officer. Okay, and they both are working at the top level management with respect to any business organization. Okay, and then CIO and CEO coordinate with the steering committee. steering committee, which is down the line to the board of directors. Board of directors responsible to create control and policy implemented by the DBA and would be monitored on behalf of the board of directors. Controls whether DBA implemented each and every control, each and every policy, the manner in which the board of directors expected, that is the governing body, would be monitored by the steering committee. And in between, performance would be evaluated by the strategic committee. So strategic committee is responsible to evaluate the performance. Steering committee is the representative body on behalf of the board of directors. So this is the process model. And now, with respect to the database, we always concern about structuring. Okay, structuring, like what I mentioned, traditional database which we are preparing using Oracle, which we are preparing using any of this traditional database language. Okay, traditional database language, whenever I'm using the traditional, so this DBA is basically concerned about structuring of the database. Structuring means how to organize the database. Okay, that is the performance issue. Whether the customer table would coordinate with the order table or order table would access the data from the customer table, whether the customer table would come before the order table or whether the order table would come before the product table. So how the arrangement, how the relationship, then again with respect to each and every table. Table is a container which is known as entity. Okay, there are number of questions would come. Please kindly just concentrate quickly. Table is a 2D container, and now within the table, there are two things, that is row and column. Each and every row represent the record. Okay, and record is known as the tuple. Okay, so one row is equal to one record is equal to one tuple. Okay, now record of one customer, record of one vendor, okay, record of one member, record of one product or a service, like this. Okay, so how to communicate with the database? And with respect to the database, broadly 4 operations we perform: create, insert, modify, and delete. Okay, and to communicate with the database, we required one logical control, which is known as the primary key. Without primary key, we are unable to communicate with any database. And to implement the relationship between the two tables, because under the current scenario, no database belongs to DBMS. DBMS is a technique, but now nowhere we are dealing with a single table. We are dealing with the multiple table, and in between the multiple table, there is a relationship exists. Okay, and whenever we implemented the relationship between the multiple table, then database would be converted into RDBMS. Now to transform DBMS into the RDBMS, minimum requirement or a prerequisite is a relationship. For relationship, prerequisite is a foreign key. Okay, and for foreign key, there is a prerequisite is a primary key. Primary key, which is a unique identifier with respect to each and every table, and primary key of one table. Usually the first table we consider, we redefine into the second table. So with respect to second table, primary key of first table would act like a foreign key. And once we implement it, then we able to implement the relationship between the two tables. That may be one to one, that may be one to many, that may be many to one, that may be many to many. Okay, and who is responsible to create this entire framework with respect to the database, which is known as structuring? DA. This issue won't be handled by the DBA, although with respect to the database, top level user is DBA, and DBA would assign privilege to DA, and DA reporting to DBA. Okay, but DA is not responsible to create the structure of the database. And if there is any performance issue related to the structuring of the database, would be address to would be handled by DA. There are number of questions. Please kindly just concentrate. And now, whenever we'll think about the database, then database understood only one language, okay, which is known as the standard universal language. And there are many questions would come. And whenever IAS auditor during the time of IAS audit want to communicate with DA and DBA, then DA and DBA understood only one language, which is known as SQL. Okay, SQL, which is further classified into 4 parts: DDL, DML, DCL, and TCL. Okay, now to create the structure of the database, okay, to create the different data field, which is known as the attribute, to define the data type with respect to each and every data field, to define the nature and the size, that is the width, which is a logical control, to create the primary key, to create the foreign key, to create the relationship. All these activities would be come under DDL, that is data definition language. Okay, so create, alter means whenever we perform any changes into the structure, this is what the DDL. Whenever we want to populate the data, okay, whenever we want to fetch, retrieve the data, whenever we want to modify, to perform changes, all this would come under the DML. Now here again the question, each and every user don't have the same level of access, right? User who is having privilege to perform the data recording, it is not necessary that within the organization that same level of user having the privilege to alter or to modify the data. So these privileges would be defined by the DBA, but at the database level, at the background, all this would be come under the DML. Then DCL, data control language, like during the time of audit, okay, under the current scenario, all of you having experience that your client provide you one flexibility that you remain in your office and remotely you able to access the data from your client server, okay, and you able to access the data during the time of audit, okay, and you only able to access the data, but you don't have the privilege to perform any alteration or any modification, okay, and you only able to access the data during the audit period. Once the audit period is over, then client automatically withdraw the privilege. So this is what client assign you one permission, that is grant, and then client, once the audit is over, audit time period is over, then revoke this permission. So this come under the data control. Then TCL, over the transport, commit and roll back. So there is a categorization and there are number of questions would come, and based on this there are some commands would come. If you like, I will share with you later on, because there are good number of questions would come over SQL, that this type of command would come under which category. This is a type of, which type of SQL command, whether it is a DDL, whether it is a DML, whether it is a DCL, whether it is a TCL, like this. Okay, and please just concentrate here. And now all this we implemented in the form of the software application. Those software application now organization either design or develop in-house, or usually organization take the support of the third-party service provider. Third-party service provider, like for example, if we'll consider the case of e-filing, if we'll consider the case of the GST, so e-filing solution and GST solution would be designed, developed by Infosys. So Infosys with respect to Central Board of Direct Taxation, Infosys with respect to Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Custom is what? A vendor organization. And Infosys, as per the business need, as per the business requirement of Central Board of Direct Taxes as well as Indirect Taxes and Custom, design and develop the solution. And this solution in the form of the software application. And this software application basically providing n number of different type of services. Okay, so whenever in-house IT department or usually the vendor organization design or develop this software application, which is basically the solution, always concern about one standard framework. And this standard framework over which number of questions would come, known as ITIL. ITIL, which stands for Information Technology Infrastructure Library. Okay, and there is a life cycle is defined that first of all thoroughly understood, which already under the SDLC also we defined, that is the requirement gathering, that service strategy, then service design. Okay, then once we design or develop, okay, then service implementation, then as per the business need, as per the business requirement, whenever the organization think about to perform any changes, whenever they think about to implement any BPR, so service transition. Okay, and then again there is a punchline, continuous process of improvement, because organization ultimately concern about regular enhancement into the services, and their number of questions would come over this. So service strategy, and each and every IT company, each and every IT department, whether it is providing the hardware support, usually the software application, they always concern about strictly to follow this framework. And the current version of this is 4. Previous version was 3. Before this was 2.1. But the current version, ITIL 4. Okay. And any IT company anywhere in the world, whether it is Infosys, whether it is Wipro, even in-house also, whenever they design or develop any software application, so software application is basically providing the services. So it should strictly follow this framework. And on the basis of this, we evaluate the performance of this. Okay. Now, along with DBA, along with DA, parallel, there are 2 more: process owner, SA and NA. If there is any issue related to, any question would come, issue related to hardware or issue related to software, this is always addressed to system administrator. Like organization is using a particular type of server machine, and now organization is planning to migrate to new version, higher configuration of server machine, maybe with respect to database server, maybe with respect to the web server, maybe with respect to the application server, maybe with respect to the data warehousing. Even if suppose organization want to create new IT infrastructure, organization want to install, want to deploy new hardware, maybe organization want to replace hub with the switches, low configuration switches with the higher configuration switches, organization want to install the new router. Okay, all this would be handled, all these issues related to the hardware and software would be handled by system administrator. Like for example, with respect to the software, backbone of each and every computing device, whether it is a server machine or a client machine, is operating system. So it is always advisable that organization must use the license version, and daily basis whenever we receive the upgrade, okay, or update. So updates are basically known as the patches. So this is a repeated question: who is responsible for patch management, either with respect to OS, even with respect to antivirus? Because antivirus, although is a security, it is a type of a control which provide services with respect to all 3 type of control: preventive, detective, and corrective. I hope all of you would agree. But antivirus is a system level control. Okay, antivirus which I am using in my laptop, that antivirus unable to provide security to your machine, although you and me may be into the same network. Okay, at the network level, we are using the firewall, and firewall is again available both in the hardware and software. So to install the firewall, if there is any issue related to the hardware, if there is any issue related to the switch, all this would be handled by system administrator. If there is any issue related to file management, related to the folder management, related to the memory management, like organization want to increase the RAM, with organization want to, along with the hard disk, suppose organization are planning to install SSD also. Okay, so who is responsible that which data they should keep into, even with respect to a single laptop, which data they should keep into the which drive, which user having accessibility of which drive. Okay, because user level management, file level management, memory level management, okay, all this would be handled by the operating system. And operating system is a type of a system control software, which is the backbone of each and every computing system, which is respect to any type of a computing device. And any issue related to the operating system, which is technically known as kernel plus shell, okay, which internally communicate with application software, which internally communicate with the hardware also. Hardware at the low level, application level software about the operating system, and then any end user always perform the transaction with the application software. SAP is a type of application software. Finacle is a type of application software. Tally is a type of application software. But in the background to any application software, n number of different type of services would be provided by operating system. And all these issues related to hardware level, related to system level software, related to application software, related to general purpose application software, even to install the software, okay, to configure the software, to configure the user, would be handled by system administrator. Time won't allow, please kindly just. Now, under the current scenario, there is hardly any business organization, like I mentioned, 90 to 95% business organizations are enabled with ERP. So with respect to ERP, database is the backbone. But along with the database, what I mentioned, just in time and right information, right user at the right time, irrespective of the physical location. Okay, so with respect to the ERP, fundamental requirement is network. And under the current scenario, we are using different networks with respect to the organization. Organizations, some users are under the intra network, some users are under the extra network, some users are under the internet, some users are under the public network, some users are under the private network. Then with respect to the network, each and every device is known as the node, each and every device having the unique IP address policy. Okay, all this IP address, which is a one type of a logical control. Okay, then it is always advisable that network should be segmented, zoning within the network, broad network. There are number of sub networks should be defined, and with respect to each and every sub network, there is a dedicated IP address policy should be defined. And if there is any issue related to the network, all this would be handled or addressed to the network administrator. Okay, but now here, please kindly just concentrate. Network is again a valuable asset. Hardware, software is again a valuable asset. Okay, database is again a valuable asset. Data is again a valuable asset. Process is again a valuable asset. And now the question is come, which asset highly valuable? And again, to mitigate the risk, organization implemented the best control, but control assessment with respect to risk assessment with respect to the network would be different. Risk assessment with respect to intra-network, because risk involved with respect to internet would be maximum. Risk involved with respect to intra-network would be minimum. Risk involved with respect to percentage of vulnerability, percentage of threat with respect to the public network would be much, much more than the percentage of private network. Okay, please kindly just, okay, there are many things, but please, time won't allow. I'll just because this is the winter and this is crack. If any query, just quickly bombard from your end. Please, if any query, somebody is there from Nagpur branch. Trapti is not there because she already informed me she is already occupied somewhere. So if anybody from the Nagpur branch, yeah. Any query, anybody, please free to ask. But I hope you people got some concept. Any query, you people free to ask, please kindly. Yes. Anybody, please kindly. Although there are many things, but time won't allow. And whenever we'll think about the security, please kindly keep in mind, we always concern about ISMS. There are many questions would come. Information Security Management System. And with respect to this, we strictly follow one standard framework, ISO framework, ISO 27001 and ISO 27002. So whenever we evaluate any control at the user level, at the database level, at the hardware level, we always concern about this. Please. Anybody is there from Nagpur branch to coordinate? No? So I hope you people got some concept. If any query, even you people can knock me later on. Knock me later on, please. So kindly allow me for time being. Once again, many best wishes to all of you for forthcoming examination. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks to all.